Chapter 3405. In the blink of an eye, 4 days passed. The mountain peak was very calm. The white-clothed youth sat under the stone tablet with his eyes closed, accepting the inheritance. The middle-aged couple had been standing at the side all this time, protecting him. If it was before, there was no need to stay here to protect the white-clothed youth. After all, no one could step into the inner area. But it was different now. Now there was Qin Feiyang and his group. They were not afraid of the Yin demon power, and could enter and exit the inner area at will. What if they did not leave and were still in the Yin demon land? What if they were in the inner area now? At that time, if they bumped into him, His Highness would be doomed. This was something that had to be prevented. The inner area was the territory of the dragons. If His Highness died here, not only would they be punished, but the dragons would also be humiliated. What could be more shameful than dying in one's own territory? If it really happened, it would be a stain that the dragons would never be able to wash away in their entire lives. After all, the death of a prince was not a small matter. For example, the fire dragon. Although his status among the dragons was not as high as the princes and princesses, once he died, it would directly alarm the entire dragons. Because this concerned the face and dignity of the dragons. They would not allow anyone to challenge their dignity. At the same time, in the distance, there was a long mountain ridge that looked like a giant python lying on the ground. This was the path that Qin Feiyang and the others had to pass through. The horsetail whisk was waiting here. Black fog lingered around, making it impossible to see anything. However, with the perception of the sovereign divine weapon, it could sense the movements within a radius of 100 million miles. Time passed quietly. Compared to the white-eyed wolf, the horsetail whisk was extremely steady and did not have any anxious emotions. Finally, night fell. The inner area seemed to be even darker. Swish! Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. The horsetail whisk was shocked. This was the aura of Wang Changyuan activating the auxiliary divine art. Immediately, it silently rose into the air and took the initiative to meet him. At the same time, the artifact spirit pointed ahead and said in a low voice, "The inheritance land is in front." Of course, they could not see it. After all, the black fog in the inner area was too thick. "You're finally here. Thank you for your hard work." Qin Feiyang smiled at Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong. If it weren't for the two of them taking turns to activate their auxiliary divine techniques and continuously carrying them on their journey, how could they have arrived here so quickly? "I'm fine." Pei Tianhong waved his hand. His personality was different from Wang Changyuan's. He would not deliberately curry favor with Qin Feiyang. Anyway, he had done what he should do. Whether or not Qin Feiyang could see, it was Qin Feiyang's own business. "I wonder how Brother Wolf is doing now," Madman muttered. "With the horsetail whisk following it, as long as it doesn't act rashly, it will be fine." Qin Feiyang smiled. "I'm just worried that it will be impulsive. It's not like you don't know its character. It can steal from others, but if others come to steal from it, it will fight to the death." Madman transmitted. She wasn't worried about anyone but this wolf cub. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but feel nervous after hearing Madman's words. Suddenly, a ray of light silently appeared in front of him. "Who?" Qin Feiyang and the others instantly became alert. "It's me." The horsetail whisk's voice rang in their minds. They looked at each other, and a trace of joy appeared in their eyes. In the next instant, the horsetail whisk arrived in front of them. "Where is the white-eyed wolf?" Madman saw that there was only the horsetail whisk and hurriedly asked. The horsetail whisk said, "It is watching over the mountain peak. I am in charge of receiving you guys here. Quickly retract your aura." "What is it watching over?" Wang Changyuan was bewildered. "Retract your aura first," the horsetail whisk urged. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and immediately retracted their aura. "Could there be someone over there?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Otherwise, why would the horsetail whisk be so careful?" "That's right. There are 3 dragons over there. And they are receiving the inheritance," the horsetail whisk whispered. "What? This is an inheritance that contains a supreme profound. How did they manage to get their hands on it?" Go, let's kill our way over," Madman urged. Don't worry. Listen to this, sovereign. These 3 people, except for that young man, are all extremely powerful. According to this sovereign's guess, their strength is definitely not weaker than that fire dragon. And the most important point is that they are carrying a sovereign weapon. The Horsetail Whisk said in a deep voice. What? Sovereign weapon? The faces of Qin Feiyang and the others changed. With a sovereign weapon, this matter would not be easy to deal with. Although the Horsetail Whisk was also a sovereign weapon, its body was damaged and had yet to recover. It couldn't display its full strength, and definitely wouldn't be able to fight against the other party's sovereign weapon. Moreover, there were also 2 powerhouses on the same level as the fire dragon. It was a bit difficult to deal with. Wang Changyuan rubbed his forehead and said angrily, In the inheritance land over there, we met 3, and now there are 3 here. How many people did the dragons send out this time? What? You also met 3 over there? The Horsetail Whisk was surprised. That's right. And we also experienced a bitter battle. Wang Changyuan nodded. Then did they take out their sovereign weapons? The Horsetail Whisk asked. We don't know because they didn't take out their sovereign weapons at that time. Wang Changyuan shook his head. It seems that the ice dragon wasn't joking with us. The dragons are coming to hunt us. The Horsetail Whisk was worried. As a sovereign weapon, it was actually worried like this. It was a shameful thing. But now it couldn't help but be worried. Don't worry. It's not certain who will be hunting who. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly and looked at the Horsetail Whisk. Take us to the white-eyed wolf. Okay. But this barrier of yours. The Horsetail Whisk was a bit hesitant. The aura emitted by the barrier condensed by the power of the blood demon was hard to hide. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and asked, Why don't you guys stay here for the time being and I and the Horsetail Whisk go take a look? Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay. Wait for us for a moment. Madman followed the Horsetail Whisk out of the barrier and flew towards the giant peak. I really envy Madman and the white-eyed wolf. Pei Tianhong shook his head and sighed. This wasn't flattery, it was true envy. If they could also absorb the power of the Yin demon, how could they be so passive? Less than an hour later, Madman, Horsetail Whisk, and the white-eyed wolf all returned. You're finally here. I've been waiting for so long. The white-eyed wolf stared at Qin Feiyang and felt wronged. Huh? Qin Feiyang laughed dryly and asked Madman. What's the situation? Not good. It's similar to what Horsetail Whisk said. Snatching it by force won't work. And if we fight with them, it's hard to guarantee that the other dragons won't come. It will be even more troublesome then. So for the inheritance here, we can either give up or think of a way to take it. Madman transmitted. Give up? What are you talking about? Do you know that the inheritance here might contain the highest profound? The white-eyed wolf stared at Madman. I know. Besides, I didn't say that I would give up. Madman rolled his eyes at him. How do you know? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and said, If we want to take it by wisdom, we can only rely on you to think of a way. I can't think of a good plan anyway. Take it by wisdom, Qin Feiyang muttered. Suddenly, he turned to look at the artifact spirit and asked, Can we directly move the stone tablet in the inheritance land? Move it. The artifact spirit was stunned and shook his head. No one has tried it before. Wang Changyuan and the others also pondered. Move it. If they could really move it, it would save them a lot of trouble. At that time, they wouldn't want to fight anymore. They would snatch the stone tablet and run away. What could the dragons and the other 2 do to them? And with their methods, even if they had the sovereign divine weapon and the couple, it wouldn't be difficult to snatch the stone tablet. It could be said that this was the most convenient and easiest way. However, the premise was that they had to confirm the stone tablet. Otherwise, could they really move it? If they couldn't, then it would be awkward to rush out. To be honest, in terms of our current situation, moving the stone tablet is the perfect way. But we can't confirm whether we can move it or not. Qin Feiyang was also in a dilemma. The white-eyed wolf asked, Then what if we deceive the couple and the white dragon sword? White dragon sword. Qin Feiyang was stunned. It's that heaven-defying artifact. The white-eyed wolf said. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and then said, "The method of deceit won't work, because there is a hard condition in front of us. We also need time to accept the inheritance." That's right. Even if we deceive them, or even if we kill them, when we receive the inheritance, other accidents might happen. So, moving the stone tablet is the safest method. The madman nodded. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, looked at the horsetail whisk and asked, "Are you confident?" "If it was outside, I would definitely be confident. Because outside, the sovereign divine weapon is the most powerful existence, omnipotent. But in this demon land, especially when it is related to the dragons, to be honest, I don't have much confidence." The horsetail whisk thought for a moment and said. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at the madman and the others. "If other methods don't work, then it seems that we can only gamble once. Let's gamble. Life and death are up to fate." The madman nodded. Since they couldn't think of a better way, they might as well be straightforward. To move the stone tablet, we also need bait. Because only by luring the couple and the white dragon sword away can we succeed. Especially the white dragon sword. If this sovereign divine weapon stays in the young man's body, then with our current state, there is no way we can snatch the stone tablet from their hands. The white-eyed wolf transmitted. That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded, lowered his head and thought for a moment, and said, "How about this? We will split into two. Horsetail whisk, artifact spirit. You two go far away and pretend to fight, the bigger the better." "Why?" The horsetail whisk was suspicious. Chapter 3406. Because only you will have a chance to lure the white dragon sword away. If it were old Pei and old Wang, no matter how big the commotion is, only the couple will go to check the situation. Qin Feiyang laughed secretly. Yes. Old Pei and old Wang's strength is not worth the white dragon sword's attention. Only you, as a dominator divine weapon, can attract its attention. And when the white dragon sword comes to find you, although your body has not recovered, at least you have a certain ability to restrain it and escape from its hands. But if it were us, once the white dragon sword arrives, we would have to run for our lives. It would be meaningless. Madman looked at the horsetail whisk and said, "Okay." The horsetail whisk replied, "Okay, you guys go first. As soon as the white dragon sword leaves, we will start moving. Try your best to delay it. In the end, whether we succeed or not, we will give you a signal. When the time comes, as long as you receive the signal, don't fight and immediately run away." Qin Feiyang warned and took out the ghost blade's body. The artifact spirit immediately returned to the body. Although the ghost blade's body had not recovered yet, it had been reassembled. And when the white dragon sword went over, with the horsetail whisk, there was no need for its help, so there was no danger. Besides, in the face of a dominator divine weapon, the ghost blade was not qualified to interfere. "Don't worry, I won't fight." The ghost blade chuckled. "Then go." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "You guys be careful too." The horsetail whisk reminded him before taking the ghost blade and silently flying into the distance. After watching the two divine weapons leave, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at the white-eyed wolf. "Lead the way, but don't get too close to the peak, so as not to let them sense the aura of the blood demon." "Understood." The white-eyed wolf grinned, and immediately led a group of people to the peak of the mountain. At the peak of the mountain, it was as calm as ever. The white-clothed youth looked serene, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. The middle-aged couple stood at the side silently, but they were not numbed by the calm atmosphere. They secretly looked around vigilantly. Boom! About 100 breaths. In the distance, a loud noise suddenly sounded. Following that, a terrifying wave of energy surged out from all directions. Within a radius of 100 million li, mountains and rivers collapsed, and the earth caved in. The middle-aged couple shuddered and looked in the direction of the battle. But the black fog was too thick. Even if they were not afraid of the demon's power, their vision would be like Qin Feiyang and others. They would be shrouded in endless darkness. These are the ripples of a sovereign weapon. What is the situation? Why is there a dominator divine weapon? The middle-aged man. Could it be Qin Feiyang and the others? The white-robed woman asked. Wait, Could it be our clansmen? No. The other aura that is fighting with this Dominator divine weapon is not from our clan. It seems to be a divine weapon, but it doesn't seem very strong. It should be a heaven-defying divine weapon. What's going on? Isn't it easy for a Dominator divine weapon to destroy a heaven-defying divine weapon? Why would there be such a big commotion? Both husband and wife frowned, unable to figure out what was going on. Should I go over and take a look? Suddenly, the middle-aged man looked at the woman and said, "Don't. You can't withstand the Dominator divine weapon's energy. Let's talk about it later. If it's really Qin Feiyang and others, they will definitely not show mercy if they find you." The woman shook her head. "But we can't just ignore it. Look at their aura. They are slowly moving over here. It means that the battlefield is also moving over here. If we don't stop them, they will sooner or later come here. At that time, it will affect His Highness's inheritance," the middle-aged man said. The woman frowned. Suddenly, she looked up at the middle-aged man and asked, "Do you think it's possible that they are coming for us?" "Coming for us?" The middle-aged man was stunned. He shook his head and said, "It shouldn't be. If they were really coming for us, they wouldn't have caused such a big commotion." "That's true." The woman nodded. Then, she said with some annoyance, "But why would a mere heaven-defying divine weapon make it so difficult for it to destroy it?" "Wait. Before I left, I heard from my clansmen that Qin Feiyang's Dominator divine weapon seemed to have been severely damaged by that lord. Could it be that the damage is so severe that it can't use its full strength? Is that why it can't do anything to a heaven-defying divine weapon?" The middle-aged man was shocked. The woman was stunned. She thought about it carefully and nodded. "That's possible," the middle-aged man said. "If that's the case, I'll go over and take a look. Even if they find me, they can't do anything to me. It's better not to take the risk. After all, Qin Feiyang has an accomplice." "How about?" the woman said and turned to look at the young man. When the middle-aged man saw this, he understood what the white-clothed woman meant. He smiled and said, "By Longjian, why don't you go and take a look? If that sovereign divine weapon is really damaged, it will be a great opportunity for us." Bai Longjian didn't say anything. The couple looked at each other and couldn't help but frown. Although their status in the dragons wasn't low, they were far from being qualified to command a Dominator divine weapon. Boom! Crack! The battle in the distance was getting more and more terrifying, and it was getting closer and closer to the peak. The couple was very anxious. Once the inheritance started, it couldn't be interrupted. Otherwise, all the previous efforts would be wasted. Clang! Finally, accompanied by a sword chime, the white dragon sword swept out from the young man's body. It was also silent and without a word. It swept in the direction of the battle fluctuations at lightning speed. Thank goodness. Seeing this, the couple couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. As long as the Dominator divine weapon was involved, there was nothing that couldn't be solved. However, they didn't know that there was a pair of eyes staring at them at this moment. It was the white-eyed wolf. At this moment, it was only the size of a palm. It stood a few meters behind the couple like a ghost, looking at the two. When it saw Bai Longjian leave with its own eyes, a hint of ridicule flashed in its eyes. It then quietly retreated to the foot of the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, Qin Feiyang Madman, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan stood together without any aura on their bodies. Madman also suppressed his aura to the minimum. As long as they didn't get too close, they wouldn't be able to sense it. The white-eyed wolf suddenly rushed into the barrier and laughed. Bai Longjian has left. So smooth? Madman was stunned. The plan had been set. It was naturally best if it developed according to the plan. But who was the opponent? If it was an ordinary person, it wouldn't be a problem. After all, there weren't many people in this world who could scheme against them. But now their opponents were dragons. The dragon race was such a colossus, and the middle-aged couple were definitely experienced figures. Yet they were actually going along with their plan. It was really a little hard to get used to. That couple is indeed smart and vigilant. They all thought that they might be coming for them. However, there is a good saying that cleverness leads to its own downfall. Moreover, because they were too vigilant and didn't dare to go personally, They sent Bai Longjian to take a look at the situation. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Then it seems that being too smart is not a good thing. Wang Changyuan chuckled. That's right. The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth and pointed to the top of the mountain. It looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "When are we going to act?" "No rush." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked in the direction of the horsetail whisk. The time to make a move was not now, but the moment when Bai Longjian and the horsetail whisk clashed. The body of the horsetail whisk was damaged. When Bai Longjian ran over and saw the situation, he would definitely not let go of this opportunity. In other words, Bai Longjian would definitely be taken by the horsetail whisk. In the distant battlefield, the horsetail whisk and Ghost Blade continued to exchange blows. Although Ghost Blade followed Qin Feiyang, not many people knew about it. Besides, in the eyes of others, a heaven-defying artifact like it could betray at any time, so it didn't matter if it was seen by others. "I say, big brother, can you be gentler? My body hasn't been repaired in the first place. If you continue to beat it like this, it will definitely fall apart." Ghost Blade's heart was also bitter. It was just a heaven-defying artifact. To let it fight with a Dominator divine weapon, even if it was just acting, it was still difficult for it. "This sovereign has already been merciful. It's you who is too weak." The horsetail whisk transmitted its voice. "Big brother, is this what you're saying? You are a Dominator divine weapon. In front of you, how can I not be weak?" Ghost Blade wanted to cry but had no tears. It was simply too shocking. Okay, this sovereign will be gentler." The horsetail whisk was helpless. Although its body was damaged, the strength it could exert was far more than this. Now it had already suppressed a large part of its strength. If its strength was divided into 10, then right now, the strength it could exert was only 1/10 of its strength. Even so, it was difficult for Ghost Blade to block its sharpness. The horsetail whisk expressed its disdain. It was too weak. As its strength continued to be suppressed, the horsetail whisk's aura became weaker and weaker. It was as if it was gradually weakening, giving people the feeling that it was indeed seriously injured. "Big brother, do you think White Dragon Sword is coming? It's been so long, but I still haven't sensed its aura." Ghost Blade secretly asked. "I don't know, but there will definitely be people coming to check. Maybe they are hiding in the dark and watching us. Why don't we add another act?" The horsetail whisk transmitted its voice. "How?" Ghost Blade secretly asked. "Let's do this." The horsetail whisk secretly said a few words. "Good idea." Ghost Blade laughed and then laughed wildly. "You think you can kill this sovereign just because you are a Dominator divine weapon? Humph. If this sovereign wasn't seriously injured by Ice Dragon, killing you would be as easy as killing a chicken." The horsetail whisk coldly snorted. Chapter 3407. "Yes. I don't dare to deny your strength, but now, you just can't kill me. Don't you think it's embarrassing for you to be a sovereign weapon? Just you wait. The inner area will definitely be filled with dragons people. When they notice the battle here, you and Qin Feiyang won't be able to escape." Ghost Blade shouted. "Bastard. You still have the face to mention Qin Feiyang. Think about it. He treated you so well these days, completely treating you like a brother. But what about you? You actually betrayed him at the critical moment and ambushed him. I don't even know if he's dead or alive now. Let me tell you, if anything happens to him, I won't let you go even if I have to chase you to the ends of the earth." Horsetail Whisk shouted angrily. That anger, that killing intent, it was too real and didn't seem to be faked at all. "Brother? You must be joking. A mere human is qualified to be my brother? Let's talk about it again. No matter how powerful Qin Feiyang is, can he be stronger than the dragons? I'll say it again. I'm loyal to the fire dragon, not Qin Feiyang, and I've never thought of following Qin Feiyang. I approached you purely to gain your trust, so that I can ambush you from behind." Ghostblade laughed. "Well said." Before Ghostblade finished speaking, a laughter sounded. Clang! Accompanied by a deafening sword cry, a sword light tore through the sky and rushed out from the black fog. "It's here!" Ghostblade shouted. "I don't need you to remind me." Horsetail Whisk transmitted his voice. His tone was quite solemn. He hoped that Qin Feiyang's side would be faster. You are? Ghost Blade asked White Dragon Sword, puzzled. White Dragon Sword said, I'm the sovereign weapon of dragons. Who is the fire dragon you mentioned before? Ghost Blade said, it's the fire dragon who can give everyone the blood mark. So it's him. Very soon. You ambushed Qin Feiyang and seriously injured him. You've rendered a great service. From now on, you'll join the dragons. As for now, you can back off to the side. Sovereign Lord, kill it first. The White Dragon Sword pointed at the Horsetail Whisk, its sharpness tearing the heavens and splitting the earth. All right. Ghost Blade responded and then transmitted his voice to his Horsetail Whisk. Big brother, I'll take this opportunity to slip away so that I won't drag you down. After saying that, he flew away without looking back. This guy. The Horsetail Whisk was speechless. It really ran faster than a rabbit. I'll also give you a chance. Join us, dragons, and I'll give you a way out. Bai Longjian's aura was firmly locked onto the Horsetail Whisk, and his tone was overbearing. What if I say no? The Horsetail Whisk said calmly. Then today will be your doomsday. Bai Longjian let out a cold snort. Rays of sword light soared into the sky, tearing apart the thick black fog, and crazily attacking the Horsetail Whisk. Do you really think that you dragons are the rulers of the Sky Cloud realm? Those who obey you will prosper, and those who oppose you will die? The Horsetail Whisk snorted coldly, and the suppressed strength instantly erupted. The rays of sword light were annihilated on the spot. What? It can still erupt with such a strong power? Bai Longjian was shocked. This sentence is really stupid. As a sovereign divine weapon, don't you know that once a sovereign divine weapon goes all out, even if the main body is damaged, it can still destroy the heavens and earth? The Horsetail Whisk's aura was like a rainbow, shattering all directions as it took the initiative to attack. That's just the final radiance of the setting sun. Bai Longjian sneered. Tens of thousands of sword chi turned into a storm, emitting the power to destroy the world, and collided with the Horsetail Whisk. Immediately, the entire inner area could feel the fluctuations of their battle. At the same time, at the foot of the mountain, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze, looked at the peak of the mountain, and said in a deep voice, Let's go. He was the first to rush out of the barrier. Although he could only last for a dozen breaths of time in the Yin demon force, these dozen breaths were enough to reach the peak of the mountain and complete the sneak attack. As expected, in less than 3 breaths, the group of people silently rushed to the peak of the mountain, and then silently rushed towards the stone tablet. Below the stone tablet, the white-clothed youth was not disturbed by the outside world, and continued to receive the inheritance. The middle-aged couple looked in the direction of the battle between the Horsetail Whisk and the White Dragon Sword, their brows tightly knitted together. Didn't they tell it to go over and take a look? Why did they fight with the other party? Furthermore, the fluctuations of the battle were countless times stronger than before. Even the giant mountain peak beneath their feet was trembling. Large rocks rolled down and crashed into the ground below, emitting a deafening rumble, as if it was about to collapse. They were too focused on the battle between the Horsetail Whisk and the White Dragon Sword. So much so that they didn't notice that Qin Feiyang and the others had already arrived at the back of the stone tablet. It's them. White-Eyed Wolf sent a sound transmission. Old Pei, Old Wang, you guys make your move. White-Eyed Wolf, come with me and deal with that young man. Senior Brother Madman, transform. If you can pull out the stone tablet after transforming, then we don't want to fight and immediately run away. Qin Feiyang sent a sound transmission. After transforming, Madman's body would be 10,000 feet tall. The small stone tablet in front of him was like a small stone in front of him, so it shouldn't be a problem. Got it. The 3 men and 1 wolf nodded. Do it. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan immediately released a terrifying aura and activated instant time, instantly appearing behind the middle-aged couple. How could the middle-aged couple think that there was an ambush here? How could they think that someone would dare to ambush them? It was completely unexpected. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan slapped their backs at the same time. But at this moment, a set of armor appeared on their bodies. Divine light flickered. Divine artifact, actively protecting its owner? Pei Tianhong and Wang Chengyuan raised their eyebrows. The power of law gushed out from their palms and slapped their backs. Kacha! The armor on their bodies shattered on the spot. Although they were protected by the armor, Pei Tianhong and Wang Chengyuan had activated their power of law. The couple groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, like meteorites, they smashed into the ground below. At the same time, Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf also jumped out from behind the stone tablet and went straight for the young man in white. The young man in white was also shocked. He suddenly opened his eyes, but when he saw Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, his expression changed, and he did not hesitate to escape. But he was still one step too late. The power of law gushed out. The white-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang punched him. However, at this moment, a set of armor appeared on the white-clothed young man's body. Puff! The young man in white spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. Because of the armor protecting its owner, his life was saved. Boom! When Qin Feiyang, Pei Tianhong, the white-eyed wolf and Pei Tianhong attacked, Madman also transformed. In an instant, that 1-meter-tall body turned into a 10,000 zhang tall giant, exuding a ferocious and violent aura. The stone tablet was right under his feet. He bent down and used his huge hand to grab the stone tablet. The stone tablet in his hand was like a green onion sprout. Get up for me! Madman roared, grabbed the stone tablet and pulled with force. However, the stone tablet seemed to have fused with the giant mountain. With Madman's current strength, he was unable to move it. What? Qin Feiyang and the other two and the white-eyed wolf turned around, and their expressions changed. You can't pull it out. I don't believe it. Madman's other hand also stretched out. Both hands exerted force, and he used all his strength. The veins on his forehead bulged. Kacha! Rumble! The giant mountain under his feet began to shake violently. Cracks began to spread. The base of the stone tablet also began to loosen. It's working! Quickly help! Qin Feiyang roared. The 3 men and 1 wolf immediately rushed to the front of the stone tablet. In front of the stone tablet, they were as insignificant as ants, completely unremarkable. However, this did not affect their performance. With the addition of the 3 men and 1 wolf, the giant mountain shook even more violently. The cracks on the mountain peak crazily spread like a spider web. Half of the stone tablet's base had come out. Put in more effort. Qin Feiyang roared. Get up! The 4 men and 1 wolf roared at the same time. With a loud bang, the stone tablet was finally pulled out. With the stone tablet uprooted, the giant mountain also collapsed. It was so fast. At this time, the middle-aged couple and the white-clothed youth charged over. You dare to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. The 3 were unable to restrain their anger. We've already snatched it, what can you do? Bite us if you have the ability? The white-eyed wolf laughed in disdain. He looked at Pei Tianhong and roared, Let's go! Pei Tianhong waved his hand and swept up a group of people. He activated momentary time and disappeared into the black fog like lightning. As for the stone tablet, Madman carried it on his shoulder. Although it was a small stone tablet, it weighed millions of pounds. Even Madman found it difficult to carry it. Fortunately, Pei Tianhong had brought him away. If he had to carry the stone tablet and run, he would be as slow as a snail. Chase! The white-clothed youth shouted, his eyes filled with killing intent. He had almost accepted half of the inheritance, but it was destroyed. How could he not be angry? The most important thing was using the white dragon sword to break the enchantment and obtain the inheritance. He took a huge risk. So now, how could he tolerate Qin Feiyang and the others taking away the stone tablet under his nose? The middle-aged couple was the same. With a heart full of anger, they swept up the white-clothed youth and chased after Qin Feiyang and the others. This person should be Qin Feiyang. The white-clothed woman raised her eyebrows. To be able to enter the inner area and be so arrogant in the inner area, who else could it be other than them? The middle-aged man sneered, killing intent surging in his eyes. Brat, you are plucking the fur from the tiger's body. They still chased after us? The white-eyed wolf frowned when he sensed the aura of the 3 people. Their speed isn't fast, so no one should have grasped the momentary time. Right now, The only thing we have to consider is the white dragon sword and the other dragons in the inner area. Pei Tianhong said. Horsetail Whisk, Ghost Blade, let's go. The white-eyed wolf roared. The distant battlefield. Bai Longjian also sensed the movement at the peak of the mountain and realized that he had been tricked. He shouted, "So your goal is the inheritance?" "That's right." The Horsetail Whisk sneered. "In that case, the dagger from before was actually acting with you?" The white dragon sword said coldly. "Yes." The Horsetail Whisk said. "Good, very good. I was actually tricked by you. However, with your final radiance, don't even think about escaping from this sovereign's hands." The white dragon sword was burning with anger as he crazily attacked the Horsetail Whisk. As long as he left the Horsetail Whisk behind, Qin Feiyang and the others would not be able to escape. Chapter 3408. The Final Radiance of the Setting Sun? The Horsetail Whisk was stunned. At this point, it actually thought that it was the final radiance of the setting sun. Was there something wrong with its brain? With a loud clang, the Horsetail Whisk once again erupted with an astonishing aura. This time it no longer held back. Caught off guard, White Dragon Sword was sent flying on the spot. What? White Dragon Sword was shocked. A dignified sovereign weapon is actually so stupid. It seems that following the dragons is not a good thing. The Horsetail Whisk sneered, turned into a stream of light, and rushed to meet up with Qin Feiyang and the others. "We've been played. We've been completely played." White Dragon Sword was furious. What final radiance of the setting sun? What betraying Qin Feiyang? He was simply playing with it like a monkey. This was intolerable. Clang. Immediately, White Dragon Sword was also like a graceful swan, carrying with it a world-destroying edge, crazily chasing after it. Thus a game of chase began. Whether it was White Dragon Sword or the white-clothed youth, they all looked extremely sinister. Whoosh! Ghost Blade took the lead to meet up with Qin Feiyang and the others. Because the place where it was hiding just happened to be the direction where Qin Feiyang and the others escaped. Awesome! Looking at the stone tablet on Madman's shoulder, Ghost Blade was immediately impressed and really pulled it out. A small matter, a small matter. White-eyed wolf bared its teeth. Show off. The artifact spirit couldn't help but look down on him and asked, "Qin Feiyang, where are we going next?" Qin Feiyang pondered. "I originally wanted to go to the inner area for a stroll, but looking at the current situation, it seems that we can't take the risk anymore. We definitely can't go. In the outer area, we met 2 groups of dragons, not to mention the inner area. If we enter their encirclement, we won't be able to escape even if we have wings." Ghost Blade said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, "Let's meet up with the Horsetail Whisk first, then discuss." "All right." Pei Tianhong nodded and turned towards the direction of the Horsetail Whisk. "We can't go," Ghost Blade hurriedly said. "Why can't we go?" Pei Tianhong was slightly stunned and looked at it suspiciously. "You wish. You have the instant time. Compared to the 3 people behind us, our speed has an absolute advantage. In other words, if we want to escape now, it will be very easy. That's because they are simply unable to catch up to us. However, if we were to rush over to the Horsetail Whisk now, our advantage would instantly vanish. Because the White Dragon Sword is a Dominator Divine weapon, its speed is even faster than when you activate Momentary Time. At that time, you won't have the advantage in that split second, so we can only rely on the Horsetail Whisk to take us away. If the Horsetail Whisk was at its peak, it would be fine. But now that its body is damaged, it can't unleash its full strength or speed. If we let it take us away, the White Longjian will catch up to us sooner or later, Gui Ren said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and asked, "Then what do you think we should do?" "Personally, I think we should split up with the Horsetail Whisk. As long as it restrains the White Dragon Sword and doesn't chase after us, with the speed of the 3 dragons, it will be easy for us to escape," Gui Ren said. "You mean we should leave the Horsetail Whisk behind?" Frenzy also frowned. "It's not that we don't care, but we should temporarily separate. As long as we safely escape, with the Horsetail Whisk's strength, we will definitely be able to escape successfully." Guirin said. But didn't you say that its body is damaged now? Whether it is strength or speed, it is not as good as before. If we leave it alone, wouldn't it be waiting for its death? It fought the white dragon sword for us. Now that the stone tablet is in our hands, are we going to leave it behind? You can do this kind of thing, but Qin Feiyang will definitely not do it. Since we came together, then we should leave together. In short, since we are partners, then we should live and die together. If you really don't want to take the risk, we won't force you. Let's part ways here. Qin Feiyang said. When Guirin heard this, he was suddenly a little terrified. However, Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan were quite touched. Although the horsetail whisk was in danger and not them, but Qin Feiyang's heartfelt words really touched them. Since they came together, they should leave together. Since they are partners, then they should live and die together. This kind of camaraderie towards a partner, in today's world, where could you find it? It could also be seen from this. If it were them today, Qin Feiyang would also not leave them behind and escape alone. There were countless talented young people in the Sky Cloud realm, but young people with good character, in today's world of mutual deception and selfishness, were already 1 in 10,000. Not to mention anything else, just this point alone was admirable. Pei Tianhong no longer hesitated, activating the moment of time to the extreme, chasing after the aura of the horsetail whisk, flying away like lightning. They seemed to be rushing to meet with the sovereign weapon. Behind, the middle-aged woman frowned as she sensed that the aura of Qin Feiyang and the others had deviated. Then they are courting death. The middle-aged man smiled coldly. If Qin Feiyang and the others did not care about the horsetail whisk, and let the horsetail whisk restrain the white dragon sword, then they really had no way. Because apart from the sovereign weapon, no one could surpass the speed of the moment of time. But now, they actually ran to meet up with the horsetail whisk. It was simply a stupid act, the white-clothed youth said. But then again, he did not leave behind the sovereign weapon and escaped alone. He can be considered a loyal person. Loyal and affectionate? Your Highness, you must not think so. The world is very cruel now. A woman's benevolence will not achieve great things. The white-clothed middle-aged man looked at the youth and warned seriously. The white-clothed youth looked at the middle-aged man in his eyes and did not speak again. No one knew what he was thinking. The middle-aged man waved his hand and led the woman and the youth to turn in the air, continuing to chase after Qin Feiyang and the others. In the blink of an eye, about 10 breaths of time, Qin Feiyang and the others met up with the horsetail whisk. At this moment, Pei Tianhong consciously closed the moment of time and used the horsetail whisk to bring everyone away. Behind, the white dragon sword's aura was fierce, and its sharpness covered the sky and earth. After the white-clothed youth and the other two met up with the white dragon sword, the white dragon sword also led the three of them to chase after them. The horsetail whisk said in a deep voice, "No, my body is injured, and my speed is a bit slower than it. I have to think of a way quickly." Qin Feiyang looked behind him. Although the black fog lingered, and he could not see the white dragon sword and the three figures, it was not difficult to determine from the aura that the distance between the two sides was slowly closing. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the stone tablet on the madman's shoulder, and sent a sound transmission. If only we could keep this stone tablet. The spatial divine object cannot be opened, and the black tortoise realm cannot be opened. We can only put it in the universe ring. But I tried just now, and this stone tablet cannot be put into the universe ring. The madman raised his eyebrows. The stone tablet's target was too big, and the aura it emitted was too strong. Even if he activated the concealment technique, it was useless. Can't be put into the universe ring? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. This stone tablet seems to have a resisting force. The madman nodded. Then we can't keep carrying it like this. Everyone was rather annoyed. Although they had successfully snatched the stone tablet, they did not expect it to become a hot potato. Wang Changyuan said, "If there's no other way, let's throw down the stone tablet and run away." Firmly opposed. The white-eyed wolf was the first to disagree. What a joke. It was not easy to snatch it, and it might even contain the highest profound meaning. To throw it away like this? Wouldn't that be a waste? It's impossible to throw it away. After all, this is our spoils of war. Qin Feiyang and the madman also spoke. Looking at the attitude of Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, Wang Changyuan smiled embarrassedly and said, I was just saying. Everyone has their own opinions, there's no need to be so nervous. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Yes, yes, yes. Wang Changyuan nodded. It was only Qin Feiyang that he met. If it was anyone else, if you dared to say something that he did not like, he would definitely be angry on the spot. Pei Tianhong pondered for a moment and sighed. If we can't put away the stone tablet, then we can only continue to drag it out and see if we can find an opportunity. Qin Feiyang nodded, but suddenly seemed to have thought of something and said, Actually, if we can make the stone tablet retract its aura and use the black fog, it will be easy to escape. Retract the stone tablet's aura? Everyone was slightly stunned and could not help but ponder in their hearts. The stone tablet was not something they could control, so it was definitely impossible to make the stone tablet retract its aura. However, there was another way. That was to use their aura to cover up the stone tablet's aura. But in this way, Bai Longjian and the white-clothed youth could still lock onto their aura. Therefore, this method would not work. After thinking about it, they could not think of a way to solve this problem. Wait! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's gaze trembled. He turned to look at the white-eyed wolf and Pei Tianhong and said, The two of you seem to be able to set up a time array, right? That's right. The white-eyed wolf and Pei Tianhong nodded. Since we can set up a time array, then we can set up a time array first and escape while accepting the stone tablet's inheritance. Once we obtain the inheritance, wouldn't the stone tablet be useless? Wouldn't it be much easier to escape then? Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Why didn't I think of this problem? Pei Tianhong was stunned. Although the Een Devil Land was unable to open a time and space transmission channel, nor could it open a time and space transmission divine artifact, the time array was not restricted. Pig brain. The white-eyed wolf also slapped his head. They had clearly grasped such a powerful power of law, but they had actually overlooked its existence. If he had thought of this earlier, he wouldn't have spent so much time when he found the first inheritance land, and the madman accepted the inheritance. Pei Tianhong urged, Hurry up and decide, who will accept the inheritance? The inheritance here, from what the three of them said, seems to be the law of destruction. The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman, as if waiting for Qin Feiyang and the madman to make a decision first. Law of destruction? The madman was slightly stunned, and a trace of desire appeared in his eyes. But when he looked at Qin Feiyang, he shook his head and said, Forget it. I have already obtained an inheritance. If I were to snatch it again, it would be unethical. Chapter 3409. The white-eyed wolf was quite surprised by Madman's words. This was the law of destruction. Most importantly, it might contain supreme mysteries. It was no exaggeration to say that it was more precious than a peerless treasure. Originally, it planned to join in the fun if Madman snatched it, but it didn't expect Madman to be so decisive. You have the nerve to snatch it. Madman sized up the white-eyed wolf. Hee. If little Qin Zi takes the initiative to give it to me, I won't be polite either. The white-eyed wolf bared its teeth. In your dreams. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at it. He wasn't a polite person. He immediately sat cross-legged in the barrier formed by the power of the blood demon, and said to the horsetail whisk, Help form a barrier to cover the aura of the time array. Okay. The horsetail whisk responded. Divine power rolled out, and an invisible barrier appeared, enveloping the barrier formed by the power of the blood demon. Although Qin Feiyang was sitting cross-legged in the barrier, it didn't affect the horsetail whisk from bringing them away. From beginning to end, the horsetail whisk didn't stop, because with the horsetail whisk's strength, it could bring the barrier away. Qin Feiyang and the others could do whatever they wanted inside the barrier. Madman also waved his hand, and the stone tablet fell inside the barrier, standing in front of Qin Feiyang. Then he looked at Pei Tianhong and the white-eyed wolf and urged, Hurry up. Let me do it. Pei Tianhong said and formed a seal with both hands. The law of time surged out and surrounded Qin Feiyang like a river of time. Array appear. After a while, Pei Tianhong bellowed, and a pentagon-like formation immediately appeared around Qin Feiyang. It emitted a hazy divine light, and Qin Feiyang sat in the center of the formation. He immediately felt that the law of time around him had changed. Without any hesitation, he took out a drop of blood essence and fused it with the stone tablet. A divine light with a destructive aura immediately rushed out from the stone tablet and fused with Qin Feiyang's forehead. Following closely, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes and wholeheartedly accepted the inheritance. Madman and the others were standing outside the array and weren't affected by it. The horsetail whisk's speed was not affected in the slightest. It carried the group of people as fast as lightning. Madman looked at the formation and asked, "Old Pei, how many years does this time formation last?" 500 years. Pei Tianhong said. 500 years? Madman was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously. The time arrays I saw in the sky cloud realm only lasted for 1 day and 500 years. Are there no time arrays of a higher grade? Of course. But we don't have that ability. That's because people at our level can only set up a time array that lasts 500 years in a day. Pei Tianhong explained. Madman thought for a moment and asked, "You mean, people like you who have comprehended the ultimate profound can only set up a time array that lasts 500 years? That's right." Pei Tianhong nodded. Madman suddenly realized and said, "Then what level does one have to reach to set up a time array that lasts 1,000 years in a day, or even 5,000 years in Black Tortoise Realm?" He thought of Sky Cloud Island's time array. The little rabbit had said that Sky Cloud Island had a time array that lasted 5,000 years in a day. It was 5 times faster than Black Tortoise Realm. Only by comprehending the ultimate profound of the time law could one set up a time array that lasted 500 years. Then for a 1,500 years time array, did one have to comprehend the ultimate profound of the time law? I'm not sure about that. Pei Tianhong shook his head. Madman wasn't too disappointed hearing this. After all, this was already beyond Pei Tianhong's ability. Let me calculate. 500 years in a day. 24 hours in a day, 500 divided by 12. In other words, Old Qin is now in this time array. 2 hours is around 41.5 years. In the time array, 2 hours is 41.5 years. The time he needs to accept the inheritance is at most half a month. So, he only needs a few breaths of time to accept the inheritance? Madman was stunned. That's right. Pei Tianhong nodded. At the back, because of the cover of the Horsetail Whisk, by Longjian, and the other two didn't sense the aura of the time array. They were still thinking of catching up to Qin Feiyang and killing a few people to take back the steel. In just a few breaths of time, Qin Feiyang, who was sitting in the middle of the time array, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes. That's it. Madman was stunned. What do you think? The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain. Madman angrily glared at the white-eyed wolf and shouted, "Why didn't you set up a time array for me when I accepted the inheritance? Isn't it because we didn't expect it?" The white-eyed wolf smiled embarrassedly. Pei Tianhong was also embarrassed. At that time, he really didn't expect this. "You're all unreliable bastards." Madman stared at Pei Tianhong and the white-eyed wolf, then looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "How is it? Is there a supreme profound meaning?" Qin Feiyang turned around and landed in front of Madman, smiling. "If I say no, you definitely won't believe me." "So there is?" Madman asked. Qin Feiyang nodded. "Oh my god. I really regret it. Why did I snatch the time array?" Madman immediately wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. His nose was dripping with tears and snot. He was extremely regretful. This proves a principle. Getting it first isn't the best. The white-eyed wolf looked at him with schadenfreude. Scram. Madman angrily glared at it. Didn't it see that he was depressed? It was fine if it didn't comfort him, but it actually mocked him. What kind of brother was this? Pei Tianhong waved his hand, and the time array dissipated. He then looked at the steel with a trace of surprise in his eyes. "What's wrong?" Wang Changyuan noticed Pei Tianhong's abnormality and raised his head. He was also surprised. After Qin Feiyang received the inheritance, the stone tablet no longer had its previous divine might. It was as if its essence had been sucked out. It appeared dull and lusterless. Taking a closer look, it was just an ordinary stone. It seems like the steel's extraordinariness was because of the inheritance within. Qin Feiyang looked at the stone tablet and said with a faint smile, "Madman received the time array. He also received the destruction array, and the supreme profound meaning. Also, the fire dragon's claws and fangs were all wiped out. The fire dragon was also heavily injured. The most important thing was, he even lured out the dragons. It could be said that this trip to the Een demon land wasn't a waste." The white-eyed wolf looked behind and smiled evilly. "Didn't they want the steel? Return it to them now." "Okay." Madman raised the steel. He was still in his transformed state. The steel was no longer as heavy as before. It was as light as a feather in his hand. When the horsetail whisk retracted its aura, and the invisible barrier disappeared, Madman threw the steel out. "Get ready. Now is the time to get rid of them." Qin Feiyang's eyes also flickered. Behind! The steel broke through the air and rubbed against the void, emitting a whining sound. "What's flying over?" When the white-clothed youth and the other two heard the sound, they immediately became vigilant. "What are you afraid of? No matter what it is, just crush it." Bai Longjian smiled coldly. Finally, the steel entered their line of sight. Bai Longjian slashed out without hesitation. "Wait! This is the steel with the inheritance!" The white-clothed youth hurriedly shouted. Bai Longjian immediately braked and brought the three of them to a stop. The middle-aged woman waved her hand, and a surge of divine power surged out, enveloping the steel. The steel immediately stopped in the air and floated in front of them. "Have you finally given up on the steel? But do you think that if you return the steel to us, we will let you go?" The white-clothed youth sneered, but suddenly seemed to have discovered something. He looked up at the steel and shouted, "There's something wrong with this steel." "Something's wrong?" The middle-aged couple and Bai Longjian couldn't help but be stunned. Then they carefully examined it. There was indeed a problem. "Damn it! The inheritance inside has already been obtained by them. This is just an ordinary steel." The white-clothed youth stretched out his hand and pressed the steel. His face suddenly revealed a look of anger as he roared. "What? How are they so fast?" The middle-aged woman was surprised. "Time array, it must be a time array. Damn it, damn it. That wolf cub and that blood-haired old man both have mastered momentary time. They can obviously set up a time array, but I actually overlooked this point? Chase! If we don't kill them, we won't stop." The white-clothed youth roared without caring about his image. The so-called blood-haired old man was naturally Pei Tianhong. Clang! Bai Longjian's sharp edge tore the sky as he led the three of them to chase. However, they soon discovered that Qin Feiyang and the others' auras had actually disappeared without a trace. "Where are they?" Bai Longjian and the white-clothed youth were a little stunned. Suddenly, an aura appeared in front of them on the left. This aura was Qin Feiyang. Bai Longjian immediately led the three of them and rushed to the left. Very quickly, they saw a white figure in front of them. It was Qin Feiyang. But now, there was only Qin Feiyang alone. "Where are the sovereign divine weapon and the others?" The white-clothed youth and the other two looked at each other. What was going on? Could it be that Qin Feiyang saw that he couldn't get rid of them? So he took the risk to lure them away to buy time for the sovereign divine weapon and the others to escape? How stupid. At that moment, they came to a conclusion. It must be that Qin Feiyang was willing to be the bait to attract their attention, so that the sovereign divine weapon and the others could take the opportunity to escape. Bai Longjian aggressively rushed over and stood in front of Qin Feiyang. Seeing this, a trace of fear appeared on Qin Feiyang's face. He immediately turned around and used the space-time step to escape in another direction. Humph! The white-clothed youth and the other two snorted and stepped out one after another, appearing in 3 different directions and surrounding Qin Feiyang. "You guys really don't give up." Qin Feiyang stopped and looked around at the 3 of them and Bai Longjian. His face was extremely gloomy. "You're also stupid." The white-clothed youth laughed mockingly. I'm stupid? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked curiously, then tell me, how am I stupid? You acted as bait to lure us over and give the sovereign divine weapon and the others a chance to escape. Isn't that stupid enough? The white-clothed youth spoke with a face full of ridicule. Sure enough, people like him who valued friendship and righteousness couldn't survive in this world. Chapter 34:10. Yes, I'm just a bait to lure you here. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then how are you going to escape now? Without the sovereign divine weapon, with your strength, it's not enough to fill the gaps between Bai Longjian's teeth. Let's talk about it later. Do you think we really care about the sovereign divine weapon and others? No. The only one we want to kill is you. You are also the target of this hunting plan. The white-clothed young man chuckled. Qin Feiyang froze for a moment then laughed. Being targeted by the dragons, should I feel honored? You can still laugh. Your courage is indeed extraordinary. As for the honor, you should feel honored. After all, since ancient times, no one in the Sky Cloud realm can make us dragons go to war like this. So even if you die, it's a worthy death. The white-clothed young man nodded. So it's like that. Then I'll thank you in advance. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands. The fear on his face disappeared, and he looked extremely calm. You're welcome. The white-clothed young man waved his hand. No, I want it. Because if it weren't for you talking so much nonsense, it would be a bit difficult for me and them to completely get rid of you. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Me and them? Get rid of them? The white-clothed young man was stunned. Why did these words sound so puzzling? Then he looked at the middle-aged couple and asked, what does he mean by this? The couple looked at Qin Feiyang and seemed to be thinking about something. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, take your time to think about it. In any case, the longer it takes, the better it is for me and them. That's right. He wasn't Qin Feiyang himself, but an avatar formed by the 3,000 avatars. As for Qin Feiyang himself, he had already activated the concealment technique and ran in the opposite direction with his horsetail whisk, madman, and the others. No one knew where he was now. Not good. He's not Qin Feiyang. Suddenly, Bai Longjian shouted. What? Not Qin Feiyang. The eyes of the three trembled as they looked at Qin Feiyang in bewilderment. The incarnation looked at Bai Longjian with a mocking smile and said, then I would like to ask, if I am not Qin Feiyang, who am I? Although your appearance, temperament, cultivation base, and even the auxiliary divine arts are exactly the same as Qin Feiyang's, I can guarantee that you are definitely not Qin Feiyang. Bai Longjian's tone was extremely gloomy, and his sharp aura covered the sky as he pounced towards the incarnation. Haha. Calling others idiots. Who is the idiot here? Brat, you want to fight with us? You're still too young. The incarnation laughed loudly as he looked at the white-robed young man. His eyes were filled with mockery. As the sharp light rushed over, it immediately shattered. Only that arrogant laughter was left, echoing in the void for a long time. No flesh and blood. This is just one of Qin Feiyang's doppelgangers. When the white-robed young man saw this scene, he was instantly dumbfounded. From the beginning to the end, he was like a monkey, being played in circles. What was even more ridiculous was that not only did he not realize it, he was even complacent and smug, calling others idiots. In the end, he was the real idiot. No, this is not a doppelganger. A doppelganger can't activate a divine art. The middle-aged man muttered. Qin Feiyang, just you wait. I swear, today's humiliation will be repaid 100 times in the future. The more the white-robed young man thought about it, the angrier he became. He suddenly raised his head and roared at the sky. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood. In the distance, above a giant mountain, Qin Feiyang and the others stood side by side, looking in the direction of the white-robed young man and his two companions. Their eyes were filled with amusement, especially when they heard the faint roar. The sarcasm on their faces was undisguised. Young master, I'm really convinced. Wang Changyuan retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang with admiration. He thought that even if he could escape, he would definitely have to pay a big price. He did not expect it to be so easy. Perhaps in this world, only this man in front of him could do it. Don't. I'm just relying on 3,000 doppelgangers. Without 3,000 doppelgangers, it would be really difficult to get rid of them. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. When it's time to be high profile, you should be high profile. Why are you being modest? Madman rolled his eyes at him. Haha, Qin Feiyang laughed heartily. He had to admit that it was indeed very satisfying. The other party was full of confidence, thinking that they were already in the bag. But in the end, not only did they snatch the inheritance, but they also ruthlessly played with them. The only regret was that he did not see the white-robed young man's hysterical expression with his own eyes. If there's nothing else, I will go and repair my body first. Fu Chen said. I also want to repair my body. Ghost Blade followed. Qin Feiyang looked at Fu Chen and Ghost Blade and said with a smile, All right, but Ghost Blade, your body can go to my Sea of Qi, but your weapon spirit has to stay outside to guide us. What else do you need to guide us? Ghost Blade was suspicious. Nonsense. Look at this inner area. If you don't lead the way, how can we escape the hunt of the dragons? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Then it seems that I'm still very valuable. Ghost Blade smirked. Still showing off? Your value is only limited to the Devil's Land. Madman was disdainful. Cough cough. Ghost Blade coughed and said with a smile. I was wrong. I will be humble and low-key in the future. Ghost Blade's weapon spirit appeared, and his body disappeared into Qin Feiyang's body together with Fu Chen. White-eyed Wolf rolled his eyes and asked, Why don't we go to the inner area again? Don't. Wang Changyuan, Pei Tianhong, and Ghost Blade's weapon spirit shouted at the same time. What a joke! If they went to the inner area now, wasn't that the same as sending a lamb to the tiger's mouth? Look at your cowardice. White-eyed Wolf said with disdain. Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, and Ghost Blade didn't care at all. It was better to be cowardly than to lose their lives. They looked at Qin Feiyang. White-eyed Wolf didn't have the final say in this matter. They had to see Qin Feiyang's attitude. However, they noticed that Qin Feiyang was looking at Madman. They looked at Madman and their eyelids twitched, because they saw that Madman was looking at the inner area. This little madman couldn't be thinking of going to the inner area too, right? They didn't know what Madman was thinking, but Qin Feiyang knew that it was definitely because of that familiar call. Qin Feiyang also looked at the inner area and patted Madman's shoulder. No rush. Wait until you reach the peak ruler realm, then we'll try again. Madman didn't say anything. That familiar call had always been there. He really wanted to go in and see what was calling him. However, the mysteriousness and strength of the dragons made him not dare to step in. After a long while, Madman took a deep breath and laughed. All right, we'll come again in the future. At that time, we'll turn that dog shit dragon's nest upside down. With that, he retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang. Then are we leaving the Een Demon Land now? Qin Feiyang nodded. Then let's go. Artifact Spirit urged. It didn't want to stay in the inner area for a moment longer. Pei Tianhong was the same. As Qin Feiyang's words landed, he swept up a group of people and flew towards the central area. Wait a moment. Qin Feiyang quickly said. What's wrong? Pei Tianhong stopped and looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang raised his head and scanned the front. He shook his head and said, We can't go in this direction now. Can't go? What do you mean? Artifact Spirit was suspicious. It's very simple. The dragons already know that we are still in the inner area. At that time, they will definitely ambush us at the border between the central area and the inner area. If we run now, wouldn't that be the same as walking into a trap? Qin Feiyang laughed. Makes sense. Especially by Long Jian and those three people. After suffering such a huge loss, they will definitely not let it go. Even if they don't ambush us at the border between the central area and the inner area, they will definitely ambush us at the exit of the Een Demon Land. In other words, we can't return to the eastern continent. Otherwise there will be danger everywhere. Madman nodded. Wang Changyuan, Pei Tianhong, White-eyed Wolf, and Ghost Blade all nodded when they heard this. He really thought it through. Then if we don't return to the eastern continent, where will we go? Artifact Spirit asked. Isn't the Een demon land between the eastern continent and the southern continent? Since we can't return to the eastern continent, then let's go to the southern continent. As long as we leave the Een demon land and enter the southern continent, we can open the space-time teleportation channel and directly return to the eastern continent. At that time, will their ambush still have any meaning? Qin Feiyang chuckled. Haha, brilliant. Alright, let's take a detour and rush to the southern continent. Artifact Spirit gave a thumbs up, and then pointed a direction to Pei Tianhong. Pei Tianhong immediately brought the few of them, and sped away like lightning. Sure enough, it was as Qin Feiyang had expected. At the border between the inner area and the central area, a beautiful woman in a black dress stood in the sky and scanned the inner area. This was the woman who sneaked an attack on Qin Feiyang from behind. The black-clothed old man and the black-clothed man were also standing beside her. The three of them were currently looking at the depths of the inner area. The battle fluctuations just now did indeed have the aura of the white dragon sword. Could it be that they also met Qin Feiyang? The black-clothed man suddenly spoke, his brows knitted together. Other than Qin Feiyang's group, who else dares to challenge us dragons? The way this group of people does things is really hard to guess. I thought that after meeting us, they would immediately leave the inner area. But I didn't expect them to still be inside. There seemed to be a trace of anger between the black-clothed woman's smooth brows. Can't you play by the rules? Then are Qin Feiyang and the others already dead? The black-clothed man was suspicious. They all used the white dragon sword, they should be dead. The black-clothed old man said with uncertainty. Dead? If it was so easy to kill them, would they be able to roam freely in the Een demon land for so long? Let's go, there's no need to squat here. Let's go directly to the exit of the Een demon land. They have to leave the Een demon land and return to the eastern continent. A cold light flashed in the black-clothed woman's eyes. She turned around and flew outside without looking back. Chapter 34:11. Not long after the three of them left, a stone door opened in the sky. This was a legendary artifact of time and space. Three people walked out of the stone door. It was the young man in white and the middle-aged couple. The middle-aged man in white glanced around and looked at the inner area. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said, "We'll wait for them here." But before he finished, another time and space teleportation channel appeared. Three figures walked out slowly. The leader was a woman in a silver-white dress. She was about 20 years old. Her long hair was silver-white and fluttered in the wind. She was tall and had an outstanding temperament. Her skin was as delicate as a baby's. Behind the silver-haired woman, there were two old women. They had white hair, and each held a walking stick in their hands. The aura they emitted was unfathomable. Is this Brother Xiaobai? When the silver-haired woman saw the young man in white, she ran towards him happily like a little girl next door. The smile on her face was innocent. But when the young man in white saw this, he could not help but frown and waved his hand. "Stay away from me." "Huh." The silver-haired woman was stunned. She stopped and said with grievance, "Brother Xiaobai, I didn't do anything to you. Why do you look at me like I'm the plague?" "Stop." The young man in white quickly reached out and interrupted the silver-haired woman. He then said, "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you." After saying that, he turned to look at the middle-aged couple and said, "Let's go. Aren't we going to wait here?" The middle-aged couple was suspicious. "With her here, how can we wait? Go directly to the exit of the Een demon land." The young man in white secretly said. He glanced at the silver-haired woman from the corner of his eyes. There seemed to be a trace of irritation in his expression. "All right." The middle-aged couple secretly responded and opened the stone door again. Seeing this, the silver-haired woman hurriedly shouted, "Brother Xiaobai, why are you leaving? Where are you going? Does it have anything to do with you?" The young man in white glared at her angrily. "It has nothing to do with me. But before we seem to have sensed the aura of Bai Longjian fighting with someone else. Did you meet Qin Feiyang?" The silver-haired woman's big eyes flashed as she looked at the young man in white and asked. The young man in white clenched his fists. There was a trace of hostility on his body. "I really did meet him. Didn't you get a bargain then?" The silver-haired woman said. "Are you done?" The white-clothed young man suddenly turned around and stared at the silver-haired woman, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Taking advantage of others? It was obvious that he had taken a big tumble. Moreover, he did not believe that the woman in front of him had not thought of this. If he had really killed Qin Feiyang, he would have returned to the dragon lair. Why would he come here? Wasn't it obvious that he was mocking him? What happened? Brother Xiaobai, did you fail to kill them? This is impossible. They even used the white dragon sword. Do they have 3 heads and 6 arms? The silver-haired woman was still acting innocent, which made the white-clothed youth extremely angry. Actually, he wasn't afraid of being mocked. After all, they were all adults who hadn't been mocked before. What he was afraid of was this kind of mockery, because this kind of mockery hurt his pride the most. Alright, Brother Xiaobai, I spoke too much. Don't be angry. The silver-haired woman smiled apologetically. Let's go. A sinister look flashed in the white-clothed youth's eyes. He turned around and stepped into the stone door without looking back. He was afraid that he would not be able to hold back the anger in his heart and go berserk on the spot. The middle-aged couple smiled at the silver-haired woman and turned to enter the stone door. After the stone door disappeared, the silver-haired woman's smile disappeared. She looked up at the inner area and said with a smile, I didn't expect them to be so capable. Even the white dragon sword couldn't do anything to them. If it was just an ordinary person, could they force that old man to self-destruct? One of the old women chuckled. The silver-haired woman was slightly stunned. She looked at the old woman and said, Then according to what you said, with our individual strength, we can't do anything to him. It's probably difficult, but it's up to us. This time, Lord Dragon King asked you to come out. On the surface, it's to hunt Qin Feiyang, but in reality, it's also to train you and test you. So don't be anxious. Take it slow. The old woman laughed hoarsely. That's right. We don't want to fail, but we don't want to make mistakes. The other old woman also laughed. Okay. The silver-haired woman nodded. After pondering for a while, she said with a smile, Then let's go to the eastern continent first. Although we were born in the Sky Cloud realm, we have never had a good tour of the Sky Cloud realm. This time we'll treat it as a sightseeing tour. That's the mentality we should have. The 2 old women smiled. The old woman on the left waved her hand and opened a space-time transmission channel. I hope there are places in the Sky Cloud realm that can interest me. The silver-haired woman smiled and stepped into the transmission channel. The 2 old women looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. Although their princess looked innocent on the surface, she was actually very calculative in her heart. At the same time, in other places, there were several groups of dragons who were also silently calculating in their hearts. Time flew. 2 months passed. Southern continent. The Een Demon land here was similar to the situation in the eastern continent. In the border area and the central area, there were many traces of berserk beasts and humans. Fights and robberies were common occurrences. This morning, 4 people and 1 wolf appeared in the border area. It was Qin Feiyang's group. After 2 months, they finally came to the southern continent from the eastern continent. There was no need to talk about the dangers on the way. Fortunately, they had Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan, these 2 super experts. Otherwise, with the strength of Qin Feiyang, the madman and the white-eyed wolf, it would be a fool's dream to cross the Een Demon land and come to the southern continent. Even the transformed madman couldn't do it, especially in the central area. Not only were there humans looking for opportunities, but there were also berserk beasts living in the Een Demon land. Most of their cultivation had reached the perfection dominator realm. If a battle really broke out, the madman could kill 1 or 2 after transforming. But if there were too many of them, he would only be slaughtered. Alright. The exit is in front. We can slow down. Gui Ren pointed forward and smiled as if relieved of a burden. Qin Feiyang and the others heard this and couldn't help but sigh in relief. In fact, the humans and berserk beasts on the way weren't a big threat to them. The main threat was the dragons. They were afraid of encountering the dragons on the way. However, looking at the situation, the dragons seemed to have all gone to the eastern continent. They didn't encounter a single one in the southern continent, which saved them a lot of worry. Roar. Boom. Battles at the border could be seen everywhere. Just like this moment, there were 3 battlefields in the surroundings of Qin Feiyang's group. There were battles between humans, battles between ferocious beasts, and even battles between ferocious beasts. They fought to the point the heavens and the earth dimmed. However, Qin Feiyang and the others didn't care about it and went straight outside. In these few months, they had experienced too much in the Yin demon land. Although it wasn't a long time, they felt as if a few centuries had passed. They couldn't wait to leave this damned place. Look, the morning sun. The madman pointed forward and chuckled. Qin Feiyang and the others raised their heads to look. The sky above the land of the shadow devils was still densely covered by black clouds, making it appear extremely dusky. However, the sky outside the land of the shadow devils was clear and boundless. It was 2 completely different worlds. It's been a long time since I saw the sun. How nostalgic. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Haha. Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, and Guiren couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that even the white-eyed wolf was tired of the Yin demon land. Lord save me. Suddenly, a cry for help sounded from the left. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. They stopped in the air and turned their heads to look in the direction of the sound. They saw 2 bloody voices fleeing in a sorry state from that direction. It was a man and a woman. They looked to be in their 20s, and their cultivation wasn't bad. They were at the early stage ruler realm. Bastard couple, let's see where you can run to. Immediately after, a cold laugh sounded. A purple-clothed youth with 5 middle-aged men flew over like lightning. They seemed to be chasing after the man and woman. The purple-clothed youth's cultivation was only at the half-step ruler realm. However, the 5 middle-aged men's cultivation wasn't bad. 4 of them were at the early stage ruler realm, and the last one was at the late stage ruler realm. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan looked at the 2. Their eyes suddenly locked onto the left side of the purple-clothed youth's clothes. On the clothes, there was the word God written on it. What? The white-eyed wolf was suspicious. Wang Changyuan looked at the purple-clothed youth and laughed. He's a disciple of the God Palace. Disciple of the God Palace? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Qin Feiyang transmitted. The super force of the southern continent is the God Palace. Brother knows. I don't need you to explain. Brother is just thinking that it's too much of a coincidence to meet a disciple of the God Palace. The white-eyed wolf laughed evilly. What do you want? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and warned. Let me tell you, the God Palace has no enmity with us. Don't take the initiative to provoke them. Right now Qin Feiyang's motto was, if I don't provoke you, don't provoke me. Damn. Brother, am I a wolf that likes to cause trouble? The white-eyed wolf said angrily. Yes. Before Qin Feiyang could say anything, Frenzy, Pei Tianhong, Wang Changyuan, and the artifact spirit all nodded. Do you have any morals? You actually joined forces to slander a pure and kind wolf. The white-eyed wolf's face darkened. Pure? Kind? Frenzy and the others were stunned and then rolled their eyes. Can you be more shameless? Do you think we don't know your character because it's the first time we meet? Soon. The man and woman ran to the side of Qin Feiyang and the others and begged. Lords, I beg you, please save us. As they spoke, they turned to look at the purple-clothed youth and the others. Their eyes were filled with fear and despair. It's not good for us to interfere with your personal grudges. Besides, we don't know why you have a dispute. Who is right and who is wrong? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. If you have the time to ask for help, you might as well run away. Frenzy laughed and had no intention of helping. Chapter 34:12. I'm sorry, it's indeed a bit abrupt. But we really have no other way. Please help us. The cause of this matter is also because of them. We are the victims. The man and woman begged again and again. If you say you are the victims, then you are the victims? In this world, there doesn't seem to be any bad person who will admit that they are the bad person. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips. We are really the victims. Can you believe us? The man and woman were burning with anxiety. Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, and the madman looked at each other. It seemed that they really looked like the victims. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth and said, "If you are really the victims, then you have found the right people because we are the embodiment of justice." Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. This was too much of a braggart. The man and woman also looked at the white-eyed wolf with a depressed face. They were afraid that they had met a fool, right? The embodiment of justice? Why didn't he say that he was the nemesis of the devil? At this time, the purple-clothed youth led a group of people over with a murderous aura. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the others, he shouted, "It's none of your business. Get lost." And the white-eyed wolf raised his eyebrows. He was quite aggressive. They didn't plan to interfere, so why was he acting like this? The madman secretly laughed and said, "Old Pei, Old Wang, you two are not doing well." "What do you mean?" The two were a little confused. How did they get involved? The madman joked. "As the former overlord of the Western continent, the disciples of the temple actually don't recognize you. Haven't you failed enough?" The two were speechless. They were indeed famous figures in the sky cloud realm. But because of this, ordinary people couldn't get in touch with them at all. Naturally, they couldn't recognize them. If it were the big shots of the temple or the managers, they would definitely recognize them at a glance. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the purple-clothed youth and muttered, "Why do I find him familiar?" Familiar? The white-eyed wolf and the others were stunned and looked at the purple-clothed youth suspiciously. "I've never seen him before. Moreover, this was their first time in the southern continent. How could it be familiar? Wait, don't tell me that he was also present during the exchange on Heavenly Cloud Island?" Madman transmitted. "Impossible. If he was really there, how could he not recognize us?" Qin Feiyang shook his head. But he looked a little familiar. It wasn't the appearance of the purple-robed young man that was familiar, but rather, the look in his eyes. "Didn't you hear me tell you to get lost?" The purple-clothed young man's face was filled with hostility. His patience seemed to have reached its limit. "Why can't we talk nicely? You can ask us to back off or get out of the way. But don't you think the words 'get out of the way' will hurt our friendship?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "It seems that you really don't understand." A cold light flashed in the purple-clothed young man's eyes as he shouted, "Beat him up. Beat him to death or cripple him. I'll take responsibility." The 5 middle-aged men suddenly burst out with a terrifying aura and rushed towards Qin Feiyang and the others. "You're courting death." A cold light flashed in Wang Chengyuan's eyes, and an aura surged out. The 5 men groaned and were sent flying. One had to know. He was a perfect ruler. Just his aura wasn't something that these people could withstand. Not only were they sent flying, but their chi Cs were also shattered. So strong? The purple-clothed young man was dumbfounded. The 5 middle-aged men crashed into the ground, and their faces couldn't help but turn pale. Killing intent flashed in the eyes of the man and woman when they saw the 5 heavily injured middle-aged men. They didn't hesitate to charge at the purple-clothed young man. They were both at the early stage of the ruler realm. The purple-clothed young man was only at the half-step ruler realm. He was only able to chase after the man and woman because of the 5 middle-aged men. Thus, at this moment, a trace of fear appeared in the purple-clothed young man's eyes when he saw the man and woman charging at him. "Don't you dare harm the young master." The middle-aged man at the late stage of the ruler realm roared and struggled to stand beside the purple-clothed young man. The man and woman didn't hold back at all. Because the middle-aged man's chi si was shattered, he was no longer a threat. With a miserable cry, the middle-aged man's blood splattered everywhere. Only his divine soul remained. "Old Black!" The purple-clothed young man roared. "Young master, hurry up and leave. We'll hold them back." Even though the middle-aged man was only left with his divine soul, he didn't retreat a single step. He swore to protect the purple-clothed young man with his life. The other 4 middle-aged men also got up and stood in front of the purple-clothed young man. They all urged the purple-clothed young man to leave. "How can I leave you all behind?" The purple-clothed young man roared. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said angrily, "Why are you all meddling in my business? Do you know who I am? I'm a disciple of the deity's hall." Seeing the purple-clothed young man's attitude toward the 5 middle-aged men, Qin Feiyang and the others were astonished. They had originally thought that the purple-clothed young man was a hedonistic son of a rich family. They didn't expect him to be so loyal. This was because they knew that the 5 middle-aged men were only the purple-clothed young man's subordinates. If it were anyone else, a mere subordinate, they would die. Who would care if they died? But this person, even in such a situation, still didn't abandon them? This was a bit surprising. Qin Feiyang looked at the man and woman again. It was reasonable for the man and woman to kill the purple-clothed young man and the others. After all, they couldn't be merciful to their enemies. But suddenly, Qin Feiyang caught an unusual sneer in the man and woman's eyes. How to describe it? It was like the sneer of a spy who had succeeded. Were they wrong? The real villains were this pitiful man and woman? The man and woman didn't stop. They continued to attack the 4 middle-aged men, with murderous intent in their eyes. "Bastard couple, I'll kill you," the purple-clothed young man roared, and a destructive aura rushed out of his body. Self-detonation. Qin Feiyang and the others were shocked. He chose to self-detonate without saying anything. However, after thinking about it for a while, he felt relieved. Since he couldn't win and couldn't escape, he would die even if he didn't self-detonate. It was better to self-detonate and die together. Although the man and woman's cultivation was at the small success ruler realm, they couldn't help but panic when the purple-clothed young man self-detonated. They immediately turned around and used auxiliary divine techniques to escape. Qin Feiyang and the others didn't move. After all, with Wang Chengyuan and Pei Tianhong's strength, the self-detonation of a half-step ruler wasn't a threat to them. "Young master, don't." Seeing the purple-clothed young man self-detonate, the 5 men cried out. "Isn't it just death? Have some backbone. 18 years later, you'll be heroes again." The purple-clothed young man said coldly. He glared at Qin Feiyang and the others with hatred. The destructive aura around him had reached the limit of self-detonation. "Backbone?" Qin Feiyang murmured with admiration in his eyes. He said, "Old Wang, stop his self-detonation." Wang Chengyuan nodded. He took a step forward and grabbed the purple-clothed young man's shoulder. A surge of divine power entered the young man's body, forcibly stopping the self-detonation. "You won't even give me a chance to self-detonate?" The purple-clothed young man was stunned. He then roared at Qin Feiyang. Calm down, calm down." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "What grudge do you have with them? What does it have to do with you?" The purple-clothed young man snorted. "You're quite arrogant." Wang Chengyuan chuckled. He raised his hand and punched the purple-clothed young man's stomach. The purple-clothed young man cried out in pain. "I won't say it even if you beat me to death." The purple-clothed young man roared. Wang Chengyuan was stunned. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other suspiciously. The white-eyed wolf went up and asked, "Kid, why won't you say it even if you beat me to death?" "Because," the purple-clothed young man stammered. "Say it or I'll kill you," the white-eyed wolf shouted. His eyes flashed fiercely. "Embarrassing." The purple-clothed young man panicked and roared. "Embarrassing." Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. The purple-clothed young man lowered his head. His face was full of anger and pain, as if there was something that he couldn't say. "Sigh." The middle-aged man whose body was destroyed sighed softly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, "Since you don't look like unreasonable people, I might as well tell you the truth." "Old Black, shut up." The purple-clothed young man glared at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's skin was indeed very dark, like a piece of charcoal. "It's already happened. There's no point in running away. Besides, you're a man. No matter what happens, you have to face it bravely." Old Black sighed. "It didn't happen to you. Of course you'd say that." The purple-clothed young man said angrily, "Young master, your words are hurtful. We've been with you for so many years. Don't you know what kind of people we are? Let's talk about it later. You've treated us so well, as if we're your family. Your pain is our pain. You've been humiliated by them. We feel the same way." Old Black roared. The other 4 burly men nodded in agreement. The purple-clothed young man went silent. Old Black looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, "It's like this. The 2 of them. The man is called Zhang Chuan, and the woman is called Lu Mei. They are the same as young master, disciples of the temple." They're both disciples of the temple? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. But they don't have any background. But the family behind my young master is quite famous in our southern continent. You should have heard of the Yun family, Old Black said. Yun family? Qin Feiyang, white-eyed wolf madman. They had never heard of this before. Because they knew nothing about the situation in the southern continent. The only thing they knew was the existence of the temple. However, Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan lowered their heads and pondered. Suddenly, Wang Changyuan looked at Old Black and asked, "Is it the Yun family, known as the second largest family in the southern continent?" Yes. Old Black nodded. I see. Wang Changyuan nodded. Is the Yun family very powerful? White-eyed wolf looked at Wang Changyuan suspiciously. Hearing this, Wang Changyuan was speechless. Old Black, the purple-clothed young man, and the other 4 middle-aged men all looked at White-eyed wolf in shock. He didn't even know about the Yun family? Was he still from the southern continent? Chapter 34:13. Is there a problem? The white-eyed wolf was a little depressed when he saw everyone's strange expression. Of course there's a problem. As the second family of the southern continent, how can he not be powerful? Wang Changyuan was speechless. That's true. The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment before he nodded and smiled. Use your brain more, so that you won't be laughed at. Wang Changyuan said. After going through so many life and death situations together, coupled with the fact that Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf were all very easygoing and easy to get along with, Wang Changyuan was no longer as reserved as before. Are you looking for a beating? The white-eyed wolf stared at him. Wang Changyuan chuckled and explained. The Yun family's weight in the southern continent can be said to be very important. It's not an exaggeration to say that the Yun family can change the situation of the southern continent with just a word. So powerful? Even more powerful than the deity's hall. The white-eyed wolf was shocked. Not as powerful as the deity's hall, but the deity's hall is also related to the Yun family. One of the old ancestors of the Yun family is the vice hall master of the deity's hall. You should have seen him during the exchange on Sky Cloud Island. But maybe your attention was on us at that time, and you didn't pay attention to them. Wang Changyuan said. Vice hall master? The white-eyed wolf, Qin Feiyang, and the madman looked at each other. That's really powerful. However, as Wang Changyuan said, because of the Sword Emperor, their attention was on the Blood Hall, and they didn't pay much attention to the deity's hall and Sky Hall. Therefore, they didn't have any impression of the big shots and core disciples of these two forces. What? You actually participated in the exchange on Sky Cloud Island back then? This time, it was the purple-clothed young man, and the other force turned to be shocked. Yes. Wang Changyuan nodded. Then you must have a great background. But why don't we have any impression of you? Who are you? The black-clothed young man looked at Qin Feiyang, and the others suspiciously. Now that he took a closer look, he realized that Qin Feiyang and the madman seemed somewhat familiar. Don't worry about who we are. What embarrassing thing did this young master of yours do with Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei? Qin Feiyang said. It's like this. Back then, my clan's young master, Zhang Chuan, and Lu Mei participated in the examination together and entered the sacred palace. Due to the fact that they helped each other and possessed decent personalities, and my clan's young master was open-minded and fond of making friends, they slowly established a deep friendship with one another. Old Black said. Their personalities are not bad? The white-eyed wolf was stunned. Yes. Blackie nodded. The purple-clothed youth clenched his fists and looked at Blackie. Let me say it. All right. Old Hay paused for a moment, then nodded and stepped aside. The purple-clothed youth looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, when I first started to associate with them, their personalities did seem decent. I also treated them wholeheartedly and treated them as true friends. I even took good care of them in the sacred palace. Later, speaking of this, the purple-clothed youth clenched his fists again. His fingernails dug into his flesh, and blood dripped down from the gaps between his fingers. Qin Feiyang and the others did not disturb him and waited quietly. Later one day, Zhang Chuan suddenly came to me and said that I was a blockhead. I asked him why he said that. He said, "Can't you tell? Lu Mei has always liked you in secret." At that time, I was really surprised because I always felt that Lu Mei treated me like a brother. Then I observed in secret, and slowly I realized that it was true. Later, you should also be able to imagine that Lu Mei was not bad-looking and had a decent personality. I wanted to try dating her. In the end, I really fell in love with her. The purple-clothed youth sighed. "Isn't that a good thing?" White-eyed wolf said. "Bullshit. This is a trap." Lu Mei and Zhang Chuan have known each other for a long time, and the two of them are childhood sweethearts. During the assessment, they deliberately pretended that it was their first time meeting each other, and then kept acting in front of me, hoping to benefit from me. The purple-clothed youth roared. This, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. This was too melodramatic. At first, I didn't know. I thought Lu Mei really liked me. Divine weapons, divine techniques, resources. I gave her anything, including Zhang Chuan. If it wasn't for me, would the two of them have become core disciples of the sanctuary? If it wasn't for me, would the two of them have the cultivation they have today? In fact, I even planned to bring Lu Mei to meet my parents to talk about marriage. But just as I excitedly went to find Lu Mei and prepared to give her a surprise, something unexpected happened. I saw the two of them hugging each other and whispering sweet nothings to each other. They even called me a fool, an idiot, so easy to use. The most hateful thing was, Zhang Chuan actually said that if I wanted to marry Lu Mei, he should really let Lu Mei marry me. He said that as long as she married me, Lu Mei would be able to enter the Yun family. At that time, she would be able to obtain even more benefits. The purple-clothed youth roared, almost going mad with hatred. Is that so? Don't tell me you're so hysterical. I have to admit that you're really lucky. Otherwise, when the two of you get married, you might have to raise someone else's child. The madman looked at the purple-clothed youth mockingly. Can you shut up? When the purple-clothed youth heard this, his eyes instantly turned red as he glared at the madman. It's the truth. The madman chuckled. The purple-clothed youth snorted and continued. At that time, I was about to go crazy. I treated them so well, but they had been secretly plotting against me, using me. I was so angry that I accidentally exposed my whereabouts. When the two of them found me, they were dumbfounded. But because I was in the temple at that time, and because of my identity, they didn't dare to attack me. They also knew that I definitely wouldn't let them go, so they ran away. My cultivation wasn't as high as theirs, and Old Hay and the others weren't there, so I couldn't stop them. Also, I'm a person who cares about my face, and is afraid of being laughed at, so I didn't dare to cause too much of a commotion, and let Old Hay and the others secretly investigate. Just this morning, Old Hay finally found out that the two of them were hiding in the Een Demon land. So I brought Old Hay and the others here. I don't need to say what happened next. You should be able to guess. The purple-clothed youth sighed. After the white-eyed wolf heard this, he looked at Qin Feiyang, the madman, the weapon spirit, and Pei Tianhong and asked, "Were we used by the two of them? What do you think?" The weapon spirit was speechless. They're courting death. The white-eyed wolf's eyes were filled with killing intent. He looked in the direction that the two of them had escaped, but they had already disappeared. Actually, with Old Hay and the other's strength, it's really easy for them to kill the two of them. It's all my fault. I was blind back then, and gave them the supreme level god artifact and god technique. Otherwise, they would be dead before they even met you. The purple-clothed youth was extremely vexed. All right, it's our fault. The madman smiled bitterly. He didn't expect the situation to turn out like this. You guys didn't know, and were confused by their pitiful appearance. Also, I was in the wrong before, so I can't blame you guys. The purple-clothed youth sighed. Madman said, "You don't say. You really did look like an arrogant and despotic playboy." Is that called arrogant? I was angry. The purple-clothed youth roared. Okay. You're the victim, so whatever you say is right. The madman waved his hand. Humph. The purple-clothed youth snorted and said, "Now that you guys know, shouldn't you take responsibility for your actions? After all, they escaped because of you guys." Are you going to blame it on us? The madman smiled helplessly and looked at Pei Tianhong. Old Pei, old Wang, go and look for them. All right. The two nodded. Pei Tianhong activated momentary time and disappeared without a trace with Wang Changyuan. This is... Old Hei's pupil shrank. What? The purple-clothed youth looked at him suspiciously. Old Hei transmitted his voice. Young master, this is the supreme profound of the time law, split time. What? Split time? The purple-clothed youth was shocked. There's no mistake, it's split time. In the 4 continents of the Sky Cloud realm, the number of people who can control split time can be counted with one hand. Moreover, they actually participated in the exchange conference held in the Sky Cloud realm. Their background is definitely not small. Old Hei was secretly vigilant. The purple-clothed youth looked at Qin Feiyang, the white-eyed wolf, the madman, and the artifact spirit. Suddenly, a trace of suspicion appeared in his eyes. Old Hei, don't you feel that they are a bit familiar? Old Hei and the others responded. The madman looked at the purple-clothed youth, and also transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. I suddenly realized that this person's eyes. I seem to have seen it somewhere before. You also have this feeling? Qin Feiyang was stunned. And it seems familiar. The madman secretly said. Strange. Qin Feiyang touched his chin and looked at the purple-clothed youth suspiciously. Both sides sized each other up and fell into silence for a moment. Not long after, Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan returned. However, they didn't see Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei. Where are they? The madman asked. We chased them out of the Yin Demon Land and didn't see any trace of them. I guess after leaving the Yin Demon Land, they activated the teleportation altar and left. Pei Tianhong said. They ran quite fast. The white-eyed wolf muttered. We don't need to care about this matter. The dragons are still waiting for us to deal with them. The artifact spirit transmitted his voice. No. Pei Tianhong thought about it and secretly said, I personally feel that we can help this person. Why? The artifact spirit was suspicious. Because of the Yin family. This person's strength isn't much, but the Yin family's strength can't be ignored. If we can be on good terms with them, it will definitely be helpful for us in the future. Besides, the dragons are such a huge monster. It will be troublesome for us to deal with them alone. Not to mention us. Even if the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace join forces with us, we might not be able to fight the dragons. So if there's a chance, we might as well pull the Yin family over. Pei Tianhong transmitted his voice. You're not being nice. You actually want to drag others down with you. It would be strange if the Yin family doesn't hate you to death. The artifact spirit looked down on him. Not being nice. Pei Tianhong was slightly stunned and secretly raged. Aren't I thinking for the young master? You also know how strong the dragons are. If we don't have more allies, what can we use to fight them? Moreover, I know a secret that no one knows. It's about the temple and the Yin family. What secret? The artifact spirit and Qin Feiyang looked at Pei Tianhong curiously. Chapter 34:14. Do you know the number 1 family in the southern continent? Pei Tianhong asked secretly. Nonsense, we haven't even been to the southern continent. How would we know about the number 1 family? Madman rolled his eyes at him. Pei Tianhong smiled and explained. The number 1 family in the southern continent is the He family, and the ancestor of the He family also has another identity, which is the Temple Master of the Temple. He family, Temple Master of the Temple. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. The white-eyed wolf asked suspiciously. This kind of thing should be known by everyone in the southern continent. What kind of secret can it be? The ancestor of the He family is the Temple Master of the Temple, and the ancestor of the Yin family is the Deputy Temple Master of the Temple. These things are indeed known by everyone, but no one knows the origin of these 2 families. Pei Tianhong transmitted. What origin? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Pei Tianhong secretly said. This matter has to start from the beginning of the temple. So long ago? Qin Feiyang was stunned, looking at the purple-clothed youth and the others. he transmitted his voice. Then let's leave the Demon Land first, find a place to sit down, and then you can slowly tell us. All right. Pei Tianhong nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the purple-clothed youth and said, Brother, may I know your name? The purple-clothed youth was stunned and replied, Yun Zifeng. Yun Zifeng. Qin Feiyang murmured and smiled. Today's matter is indeed our fault, but we didn't do it on purpose. Please forgive us, Brother Yun. Yun Zifeng and Old Black looked at each other. This group of people didn't look like unreasonable people. Since the other party had taken the initiative to apologize, there was no need for them to not let it go. The most important thing was, this group of people exuded a mysterious aura, and they felt that they were not people to be trifled with. Since the misunderstanding had been resolved, it was better to have less trouble. It's fine. It's all a misunderstanding. Yun Zifeng waved his hand and said, But you can't just leave like this. You should at least take some responsibility. After all, it was because of you that they escaped. Responsibility is a must. However, we are not familiar with the southern continent. It will be difficult to find them. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zifeng awkwardly, then suddenly smiled and said, How about this? I'll compensate you for your losses. Compensation? Yun Zifeng was slightly taken aback and said speechlessly, I say, big brother, do I look like someone who lacks money? Ugh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He forced a smile and said, As a descendant of the Yun family, I can get whatever I want. I really don't lack anything. I have offended you, please forgive me. What do you mean you can get whatever you want? It's not as exaggerated as you say. Some things have to be fought for with your own efforts. Others won't give it to you. Yun Zifeng waved his hand and pondered for a moment before he said, I see that all of you are sensible people, so I won't make things difficult for you. After all, it's just as you said. We're not familiar with this place, so finding two people is no different from finding a needle in a haystack. Thank you for your understanding, brother. Qin Feiyang smiled. His impression of this person was not bad. Although he had a powerful family background, he did not show that kind of arrogant and overbearing attitude. However, I'm not such a magnanimous person. I'm not afraid of offending you. After such a thing happened, I really can't let it go just like that. Yun Zifeng said again. Understandable. I understand what you mean. I owe you for this matter. If there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely pay you back. Qin Feiyang smiled. You said it. I didn't force you. Yun Zifeng said. I said it. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. Yun Zifeng nodded. Then we'll meet again. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled, then nodded to Pei Tianhong. Pei Tianhong waved his hand and swept up the few people, then turned around and left at lightning speed. After watching Qin Feiyang and the others leave, Old Black shook his head and said, The more I look at this group, the more I feel that they're not simple. I think so too. Yun Zifeng nodded, then frowned and said, But those two young men look really familiar. Do you want me to investigate? Old Black asked. There's no hurry. Let's find that pair first. Even if we have to turn the southern continent upside down, we have to find them. Yun Zifeng clenched his fists. Yes. Old Black nodded respectfully. Yun Zifeng looked at Old Black, whose body had been destroyed, and blamed himself. It's all my fault. Don't worry about it. Go back to your family and heal your body. It's okay. Even if I'm only left with my divine soul, I can still do it. Old Black hurriedly said. Shut up. I told you to go back, so go back. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Yun Zifeng said angrily. Even if Yun Zifeng was angry, Blackie didn't have the slightest fear. He still wanted to argue for what was right. But when he saw the four large men giving him meaningful glances, he immediately sighed and respectfully said, All right, I'll immediately return to recover. That's right. Yun Zifeng's expression eased a lot, and he said with a smile, You know me. I'm not scolding you, I'm worried about you. You have elders and children to take care of. With your current state, if something happens, how can I explain it to your family? Thank you for your concern, young master. Old Black was touched. Pretentious. Yun Zifeng rolled his eyes at Old Black, and took out 4 yuan high divine pills. There were 8 dragon-shaped pill chi. The quality was better than Dan Wuxai's. Here you go. Yun Zifeng threw it to the 4 middle-aged men. Thank you, young master. The 4 of them caught the pills, thanked him, and threw them into their mouths. Let's go. Yin Zifeng chuckled, and led the 5 people flying outside. Back to Qin Feiyang's group. At this moment, they had already walked out of the Yin Demon land. In front of them were endless mountains and rivers. The morning sun shone on the earth, making all living things grow. Towering ancient trees swayed in the wind, exuding exuberant vitality. It's more comfortable to stay outside. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang and the others lowered their heads, and then turned to look at the Yin Demon land. Although it had only been a few months, they had experienced too much. And they hadn't rested for a moment. They had been running and fighting. Not to mention Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan who had been fighting. Even Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, and Artifact Spirit felt a little tired. However, the gains were also great. First was Frenzy. Not only had his divine power evolved, he had the ability to transform, and he had also inherited the laws of space and time. Next was Qin Feiyang. He had inherited the laws of destruction, and it also contained the Supreme Profound. Compared to these, what Qin Feiyang was most satisfied with was Pei Tianhong's change. After a few months of life and death, Pei Tianhong had completely integrated into this small team. For example, Wang Changyuan. In the past, Pei Tianhong had a lot of complaints about Wang Changyuan because Wang Changyuan betrayed him. Even though he had been working by Qin Feiyang's side, he still couldn't help but feel disgusted and hateful. But now, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Pei Tianhong's attitude towards Wang Changyuan had obviously changed. Even if they weren't brothers, at least they could be called friends. Although we have gained a lot, there are also regrets. This regret is the fire dragon. I really don't understand. Why is this bastard so lucky every time? The white-eyed wolf was furious. Every time he was so close to killing the fire dragon. But at the crucial moment, he could always escape. Could this be the old saying, a good person doesn't live long, but a disaster lasts for 1,000 years? Don't worry. We will meet again sooner or later anyway. I want to see if the heavens will always take care of him like this. Frenzy smiled coldly. Damn heavens. The white-eyed wolf raised his head and looked at the sky, his eyes full of contempt. Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and smiled. Shouldn't your biggest regret be that you didn't get the laws of destruction from the golden-clothed youth? The white-eyed wolf was stunned for a moment before disdain appeared in his eyes. What? You changed your mind and don't want it? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Of course. You have already obtained the inheritance of the supreme laws of destruction. Why would I want to snatch his 5th law of destruction? A person must have a goal. No matter what, this big brother can't be worse than you. The white-eyed wolf chuckled. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but reveal a trace of disdain in his eyes. Pei Tianhong coughed and smiled. Let's go to the Black Tortoise world first. I haven't seen everyone for so long, I miss you guys. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at Pei Tianhong. Did I say something wrong? Pei Tianhong was suspicious. You actually miss others? That's really strange. Frenzy chuckled. Little Frenzy, you don't understand. What others miss is the door of potential. The white-eyed wolf had a mocking expression. So that's how it is. Look at my brain, it's too slow. Sorry, don't laugh at me. Frenzy slapped his forehead and looked at everyone with his hands clasped. Looking at the man and wolf singing the same tune, Pei Tianhong's expression was awkward. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked deeply at the Yin Demon land, and then waved his hand. The group immediately appeared above the Devil land. This is the Black Tortoise world? Looking at this unfamiliar world, Ghost Blade was shocked. Spirit vein, crystal vein, herbs, this was simply a god treasury in front of them. We're finally home. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf also smiled. Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong looked at each other and scanned the Devil land. Now that they were back in the Black Tortoise world, they actually felt a sense of belonging. This was where their home belonged. No matter what happened outside, no matter how much they experienced, when they returned here, their hearts felt more at ease. Hey, hey, hey! Is no one coming to welcome us? The white-eyed wolf roared in dissatisfaction. So, not long after he finished speaking, 3 figures flew out from 3 different courtyards, flew into the sky, and landed in front of Qin Feiyang and the others. It was the mermaid princess, Zhuoxian and Fire Lotus. The 3 women's faces were filled with joy. You're the only one with a loud voice? The mermaid princess glared at the white-eyed wolf and walked in front of Qin Feiyang. Her eyes seemed to be a little wet. I'm sorry for making you worry for so long. Qin Feiyang held his lover's hand with an apologetic expression. No, I'm just happy to see you guys back. The mermaid princess shook her head. Zhuoxian didn't hold back and directly went into Frenzy's arms to seek comfort. So many people are watching. What are you doing? It's embarrassing. Frenzy glanced at Wang Changyuan and the others with an uncomfortable expression. So what if they're watching? It's not like I haven't seen it before. Zhuoxiaoxian's face was full of indifference. She hugged Frenzy's waist tightly with both hands, which made Frenzy feel helpless. Chapter 34:15. Qin Feiyang hugged the mermaid princess' waist and looked down. The ancient castle had returned to its original place, and the main body, that was damaged in the battle, had been repaired. After all, one day outside was 1,000 years in the Black Tortoise world. After a few months, there were already several 100,000 people in the Black Tortoise world. Where's the ruler weapon from the Demon Hall? Qin Feiyang asked. It's in my qixi. Fire Lotus smiled. Why did it go to your qixi? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Fire Lotus smiled. Because I'm Elder Huo's disciple, so it trusts me more. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang laughed involuntarily. It turned out that this sovereign divine weapon was worried that everyone would steal it away. Then, he waved his hand, and the horsetail whisk and ghost blade's main bodies appeared. He smiled and said, You two also go to the land of origin and repair your main bodies. Okay. The artifact's spirit chuckled and flew into the sky with the horsetail whisk, disappearing without a trace. Guiren yearned for the land of origin. He had risked his life with Qin Feiyang for so long just for this moment. Qin Feiyang turned to Pei Tianhong and smiled. Old Pei, you go to the ancient castle and find Dan Wankai. Thank you, young master. Pei Tianhong took a deep breath and flew toward the ancient castle with excitement and anticipation. Mermaid Princess crawled out of Qin Feiyang's embrace and looked at Pei Tianhong's back. She asked, Are you going to help him open the door of potential? Qin Feiyang nodded. Can we trust him? Mermaid Princess asked. Qin Feiyang paused and asked suspiciously, You don't know what happened in the land of Yin demons? We don't know. Before you entered the land of Yin demons, Big Sister Fire Lotus tried to contact you and couldn't see what was happening outside. Mermaid Princess shook her head. So you're saying that the laws and restrictions of the Yinma land are even scarier than the Nether King's hell? Qin Feiyang frowned. When they were in the Underworld King's hell, although they couldn't enter the Black Tortoise world, the people in the Black Tortoise world could see the situation outside. What exactly did you experience in the Yin Devil land? Zhuoxian also came out from Madman's arms, curiously looking at Qin Feiyang and the others. Let's go to the tea garden first. Let's sit down and talk. Qin Feiyang smiled. In the tea garden, the tea trees swayed in the wind like young girls, full of vitality. Every tea leaf was sparkling and translucent like jade. Walking into this place was like walking into a sea of tea, making one feel happy. Qin Feiyang and the others sat around the table. The mermaid princess sat next to Qin Feiyang and made tea. The faint fragrance of the tea and the peaceful atmosphere made them relax, and their fatigue gradually dissipated. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Wang Changyuan, you say it. Okay. Wang Changyuan nodded and described what happened in the Yin Devil land in detail. Qin Feiyang drank his tea with a calm expression. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf drank the Black Tortoise Divine Brew, and their expressions were also calm. After all, it was something they had experienced personally. Hearing it now, it wasn't surprising. However, the mermaid princess, Zhuoxian, and Fire Lotus couldn't help but tremble in fear. They didn't expect Qin Feiyang and the others to experience so many dangers in just a few months outside. No wonder Qin Feiyang helped Pei Tianhong open the door to potential. This was a test of life and death. He was absolutely trustworthy. So, we're facing the risk of being hunted down by the dragons again? Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang. Yes. Their hunting plan has already begun. When we return to the eastern continent, fierce battles will be inevitable. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. Couldn't they let him rest for a while? He had just finished off the Blood Hall. And now he had to face the dragons that were countless times stronger than the Blood Hall. Sigh. I didn't expect the Sky Cloud realm to have dragons. Mermaid Princess sighed. What are you afraid of? The dragons of the ancient realm can't beat us. And the dragons here can't beat us either. We'll be the victors in the end. Madman smiled proudly. Can you not be so arrogant? Can the dragons of the ancient realm compare to the dragons of the ancient realm? Zhuo Xiaoxian glared at him with dissatisfaction. Although she hadn't been to the ancient realm, she had been in the Black Tortoise realm for so many years and knew about the dragons of the ancient realm. Is there a difference? Madman drank a mouthful of the Black Tortoise divine brew, and his face was full of disdain. Zhuo Xiaoxian expressed her helplessness. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhuo Xiaoxian, and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. This little girl's strength had improved by quite a bit. It seemed that she hadn't slacked off in the Black Tortoise realm for the past few months. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and Mermaid Princess, and his expression was slightly stunned. He hadn't noticed before. But the aura of these two girls had already reached the half-step ruler realm. There's no hurry to deal with the dragons. Those princesses and princes want to end the battle quickly, but we won't let them have their way. We'll play with them slowly. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. That's easy to say. Do you have the ability to end the battle quickly with them? White-Eyed Wolf said with disdain. Can you not talk about it? Qin Feiyang's expression froze, and he glared fiercely at White-Eyed Wolf. Haven't you heard of the saying, life is hard, don't talk about it? Cough cough. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly, looked at the three girls, and said with a smile, let's not talk about the dragons for now. Let's talk about the three of you first. I haven't seen you for a few months, and your strength has increased. Of course. It's not just us. Apart from little Jie and the other kids, basically all of them have reached the half-step ruler realm. Mermaid Princess raised her head, revealing a rare bit of pride. Really? Don't make me happy, Qin Feiyang said. Why would I lie to you about this? Xia Yuan, Big Sister Rishwang, and even Mu Tianyang, Dong Zhengyang, the demon ancestor, and Mu Qing have all reached the half-step ruler realm. The few of them might not even be half-step ruler realm. Mermaid Princess said. Not bad. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. The overall strength of the Black Tortoise realm had increased by another level. Wait, you're saying that Mu Tianyang and the others might not even be half-step ruler realm? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. In any case, every time I see them, I can't see through their cultivation. Mermaid Princess nodded. What's the situation? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then asked, what kind of laws have they comprehended? I don't know. Mermaid Princess shook her head. Haven't you always been in the Black Tortoise realm? How can you not know? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Then I can't keep an eye on them every day, right? Besides, ever since they broke through to the peak imperishable realm, they've been training outside and comprehending laws. It's rare to see them return. Mermaid Princess said. All of them are quite carefree. Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. He was risking his life outside. But these guys were enjoying their lives in the Black Tortoise realm. No, he had to find a chance to drag them down with him. In his heart, Qin Feiyang began to calculate silently. Mu Tianyang, Dong Zhengyang, demon ancestor, and Mu Qing were all people with heaven-defying battle souls, and each of them had extraordinary talent. The most important thing was, they had opened the door of potential early on, and they were cultivating in the Black Tortoise realm every day. Their cultivation would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. Of course. To be honest, even Qin Feiyang and Madman's current strength was nothing in the Sky Cloud realm. After all, only by reaching the peak dominator realm would they have the right to speak. But, In terms of brains and methods, Mu Tianyang and the others were all old foxes. After all, after fighting for so many years, Qin Feiyang was still clear about the details of these people. If he let them help, then he should have more confidence in dealing with the dragons. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang looked at Wang Changyuan and smiled. Old Wang, I'll give you a mission. Please tell me. Wang Changyuan stood up and looked at Qin Feiyang respectfully. Go to the central continent and tell the secret guards about the dragon's situation. Tell them to work harder and be ready to fight at any time. Qin Feiyang said. Yes. Wang Changyuan nodded, turned around, and flew away like lightning. Qin Feiyang was silent for a while, then looked at Madman and White-Eyed Wolf and sighed. We have to tell Xia Yuan and the others about this. Let them be mentally prepared, and also give them some pressure. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf both agreed. All right. Senior brother Madman and I are going to comprehend the inheritance. White-Eyed Wolf, I'll leave this matter to you. Qin Feiyang smiled. Can you not mention the inheritance? The ingrate angrily glared at Qin Feiyang. Then, he picked up the wine jug and left with a face full of displeasure. What's wrong with it? Mermaid Princess and the others looked at White-Eyed Wolf's back suspiciously. What else can it be? It's just unhappy that senior brother and I got the inheritance. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Is that so? The three shook their heads and laughed. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus and asked, Have you finished organizing the resources in the Blood Hall? It's already been organized. I asked Pai Lupi and the others to take the Crystal Vein and Soul Vein to the East, South, North and Central Continent. After all, the Devil's Land is only so big, it's already full. There are also many divine weapons and divine arts. Except for the few supreme divine arts and divine weapons, I've distributed them to everyone. Now in our Devil's Land, whether it's humans or beasts, basically all of us have a legendary divine weapon, a legendary divine art, and a support divine art. Fire Lotus explained. Very good. Qin Feiyang nodded. His previous wish was to equip everyone with a divine weapon and divine art. Now he finally did it. Although they were only at the legendary level, it didn't matter. This was because all heaven-defying divine artifacts could slowly grow. As for divine arts, they didn't have much meaning, because battles in the sovereign realm basically used the profound laws. Of course, it wasn't that they were useless. If they really insisted on pursuing divine arts, 1 or 2 would be enough. They could slowly improve it in the future, and fuse the power of the laws. As for the remaining low-level divine arts and divine weapons, I asked Pai Lupi and Theta Wang to send them to the divine treasures and the various forbidden areas. Consider it a blessing for the Black Tortoise world. Fire Lotus smiled. When you do things, it's really reassuring. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Fire Lotus smiled and said, However, I still have the supreme divine arts and divine weapons in my hands, waiting for you to deal with them. How many do you have? Qin Feiyang asked. The 3rd chapter is a little late. Chapter 34:16. Fire Lotus said, 8 divine artifacts, 12 divine arts, and 4 of them are supreme, heaven-defying support divine arts. That's all there is in such a big blood hall? Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. This also proves that supreme-level divine artifacts and divine techniques are indeed very rare. Fire Lotus nodded. That's all. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked at Fire Lotus and said, Senior brother, White-Eyed Wolf and I don't need these things. Let's just give them to Wang Ming and Yang Li. Okay. Fire Lotus smiled. Okay, I'll trouble you to take care of them. I'll go back and comprehend the law of destruction that I inherited. Qin Feiyang smiled at Fire Lotus, then pulled the mermaid princess home. Can you be more honest with your hands? Blushing, the mermaid princess said angrily. Because Qin Feiyang's hands were very naughty. We've been apart for a few months, and I miss you a lot. You have to help me relieve my lovesickness, right? Qin Feiyang chuckled. You're so naughty. Mermaid princess rolled her eyes at him. Pondering for a while she said, Feiyang's sister Fire Lotus isn't young anymore. Huh. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He looked at the mermaid princess suspiciously. Why are you suddenly talking about this? You're such a blockhead. Mermaid princess glared at Qin Feiyang angrily and said in a low voice, Look at Sister Fire Lotus. She's been busy with you all these years and hasn't thought about her marriage. Oh, you mean that? Realization dawned on Qin Feiyang and he chuckled. You really can't blame me for this. I've thought about it, but after thinking about it, I realized that this girl is really too outstanding. I don't think anyone is worthy of her. We can't let her die alone, can we? The mermaid princess said. That definitely won't happen. Don't worry, I'll take this matter to heart. Besides, Fire Lotus is my sister, so I have to keep an eye on her. His strength and talent can be mediocre, but his character must be top-notch. Qin Feiyang smiled. According to the standards in your heart, I don't think anyone in this world is qualified. The mermaid princess was speechless. So it all depends on fate. We can't be too deliberate. Otherwise, Fire Lotus will think that we're going to force her to leave. Qin Feiyang smiled. You have a lot of excuses. The mermaid princess was helpless. While they were talking, the two of them had already reached the courtyard. Qin Feiyang moved closer to the mermaid princess's ear and chuckled. Let's take our time with Fire Lotus. First, help me relieve the pain of lovesickness. After saying that, he carried the mermaid princess and ran towards the pavilion as if he was flying. Fuck, can't you be more reserved? On the other side, Lunatic followed Zhuo Xiaoxian back to the house. Seeing Qin Feiyang's behavior, he immediately rolled his eyes. Jealous? Zhuo Xiaoxian giggled. Jealous? Lunatic's face was full of disdain. He hugged Zhuo Xiaoxian and said proudly, It's not like I don't have one. Why should I be jealous of him? Zhuo Xiaoxian's cheeks were red. She lowered her head and twisted her fingers like a little girl, murmuring, Then should we? What? Lunatic looked at her suspiciously. That is, Zhuo Xiaoxian's cheeks were almost dripping with water. Say it, Lunatic urged. Zhuo Xiaoxian's face darkened. She said angrily, Why are you so stupid? Just like Qin Dage and sister-in-law, we're going to make a baby. She then realized that she was being too straightforward. She lowered her head in embarrassment. Make a baby? Lunatic was startled. He lifted Zhuo Xiaoxian and said with a cunning smile, So you want to make a baby with me that much? Fine. I'll take you on the spot. We'll have a shotgun marriage in the future. Saying this, he rushed into the attic and slammed the door shut. As for whether he would take her on the spot, no one knew. Time passed quickly. 1,000 years later, a terrifying aura burst out from Lunatic's courtyard, startling many people. Following it, space-time storms appeared in the sky above, sweeping across the place. That looks like the rules of space-time. Long Tianyu, Wang Xiaojie, Qin Shen, and Zhuo Xiaoqing ran out of the courtyard and looked at Lunatic's courtyard with their mouths agape. Zhuo Xiaoqing didn't have much contact with others in the Black Tortoise world, but he spent every day with Wang Xiaojie and the other two. Their relationship was very good now, because in this demonic land, only Wang Xiaojie and the other two were a little younger. This is Martial Uncle Lunatic's aura. He actually comprehended the space-time laws again. This is too much. Not only did we not catch up with him, the gap between us is getting bigger and bigger. Wang Xiaojie said with jealousy. Catch up with him? Come on. Qin Shen rolled his eyes. Looking at the space-time storm in the sky, his eyes were full of admiration. Soon, the space-time storm dissipated, and Lunatic's aura soared to the greater success stage. Swoosh. After the aura dissipated, a space-time rift appeared in front of Long Tianyu and the other three. The four of them were surprised. Was this the space-time portal? In the next moment, a black-robed young man walked out of the space-time rift. Who else could it be but Lunatic? Uncle is mighty. Wang Xiaojie immediately went up to flatter him. I am mighty. Do I need you to say that? Lunatic rolled his eyes at him. Wang Xiaojie was stunned and immediately muttered in his heart. Shameless, he smiled and said, Uncle, when will you explain the mysteries of the space-time laws to us? Didn't Qin Batian and Chuyin talk about it before? What were you all doing at that time? Didn't you listen carefully? Lunatic said. Yes. Wang Xiaojie quickly nodded and said, But this thing, After hearing it once or twice, I don't think it's very useful. That's because your talent isn't good enough, and you can't understand it. I really don't understand. Why does old Qin like you as a disciple? Lunatic shook his head. Uncle, just say it, can you not attack me personally? Wang Xiaojie looked at him bitterly. I'm too lazy to attack you. Lunatic smiled in disdain. Wang Xiaojie smiled and said, Uncle, don't be like this. Look, in our generation, Qin Shun, Long Tianyu, and I are all pretty good. Brother-in-law, and me. Zhuo Xiaoqing quickly raised his hand, afraid that he would be forgotten. The current him compared to the past. Not only was he much more mature, his cultivation had also improved greatly. The most important thing was that he was no longer as timid as before. Brother-in-law. Lunatic was stunned and looked at Zhuo Xiaoqing. The word brother-in-law sounded pretty good. Then he glanced at Wang Xiaojie and the other two and said indifferently, All right, since I'm free now, I'll tell you guys. Thank you, uncle. Wang Xiaojie chuckled. An uncle is an uncle. Old uncle? Am I that old? Lunatic glared at him, then glanced at Qin Feiyang's courtyard and asked, Your master hasn't come out of seclusion yet? Not yet. Wang Xiaojie shook his head. Madman frowned. Could it be that the inheritance of a supreme profound meaning needed even more time? In the blink of an eye, another 2,000 years passed. Boom! On this day, another terrifying aura erupted. However, it was different from the space-time law. This aura contained a destructive power that could destroy the world. Lunatic was the first to run out of his room. Looking at Qin Feiyang's courtyard, his eyes were filled with envy. He could tell the strength of this destruction energy at once. It was much stronger than the destruction energy he had comprehended when he comprehended the fifth profound. Clearly, Qin Feiyang had already grasped the supreme profound of the law of destruction. The white-eyed wolf also ran over. Looking at the destructive power surging in the sky, he roared, Little Qinzi, Big Brother wants to fight you one-on-one. Sure. I would also like to see how powerful a person who has mastered 3 profound truths is. As his voice fell, Qin Feiyang stepped into the air above the courtyard. Like Lunatic, his aura instantly soared to the greater mastery level. He broke through? The white-eyed wolf's expression stiffened. He quickly waved his paw and laughed. Forget it, there's no need to fight between brothers. What a joke. He had already broken through to the greater mastery level. How could he fight? If Qin Feiyang was still at the lesser mastery level, he was confident that even if Qin Feiyang had grasped the supreme profound of the law of destruction, he would still be able to suppress Qin Feiyang. After all, as Qin Feiyang had said, he had grasped the 3 supreme profound. But now, Qin Feiyang had broken through, while the white-eyed wolf was still at the lesser mastery level. With a difference of 1 minor realm, even if he had the 3 supreme profound, he still wouldn't be able to fight against Qin Feiyang. This was because Qin Feiyang had also grasped the supreme profound of the supreme law. Although the number was a bit lower, his cultivation could suppress the white-eyed wolf. You think I won't fight just because you said so? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted. After this wolf cub had obtained the supreme profound of the 3 supreme laws, it had been extremely arrogant. It was time to let it have a taste of being beaten. Boom! But just as Qin Feiyang was about to make a move, a terrifying aura suddenly burst out and rolled over from the distance. Qin Feiyang, madman, and the white-eyed wolf were startled. They hurriedly raised their heads and looked over, their eyes filled with surprise. Madman landed beside Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, and said with a frown, This aura doesn't seem to be from the devil's land? Definitely not. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The 2 men and 1 wolf carefully analyzed for a while and exclaimed in unison, Middle ground! How could such a terrifying aura erupt from middle ground? Let's go and take a look. The white-eyed wolf urged. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and brought the man and wolf to the sky above middle ground. Immediately, they saw a shocking scene. The entire sky above middle ground had turned into a sea of fire. The scorching heat shrouded the world, and the entire place was like a huge furnace. Greetings, young master. Accompanied by the sound of breaking through the air, The 9 commanders rushed in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed respectfully. They were the 9 deacons in the past. Qin Feiyang nodded and lowered his head to look down. He saw that there were several thousand people standing in the mountains and rivers below. It was the 6,000 shadow guards Pei Daisen and the others. The 6,000 shadow guards and Pei Daisen looked at Qin Feiyang with awe in their eyes. Especially Pei Daisen and the others. Since coming to the Black Tortoise world, this was the first time Qin Feiyang descended to middle ground. The previous encounter in the Soul-Sealing Valley was still vivid in their minds. So when they saw Qin Feiyang again, they instinctively felt fear. Chapter 34:17. Glancing at everyone, Qin Feiyang raised his head to look at the sky. Waves of fire were rolling, covering the sky and earth. Not only the sky, but even the sky and the ground were dyed red. This is the power of law. Madman frowned and glanced at the sea of fire. Suddenly, his pupils shrank as he saw a figure in the middle of the sea of fire. It was Wang Changyuan. So that's how it is. Madman revealed a look of understanding, and a smile appeared on his face. Obviously, Wang Changyuan comprehended the supreme mystery of fire law. Madman glanced at the 9 commanders and joked, "Are you envious?" The 9 commanders looked at Wang Changyuan and couldn't help but nod. Of course they were envious. In the past, although Wang Changyuan was the confidant of the Blood Hall Master, in terms of power and status, he wasn't as good as them. However, after following Wang Changyuan had not only become their immediate superior, but he had also comprehended the law of fire's supreme profundity. Adding the law of lightning's supreme profundity, Wang Changyuan now possessed 2 great supreme profundities. Although they weren't the strongest laws, these 2 supreme mysteries were already powerful enough in the sky cloud realm. And this was the benefit of opening all the gates of potential. If Wang Changyuan hadn't opened all the gates of potential, how could he comprehend the supreme mystery of fire law so quickly? They were more and more eager to open the gates of potential. A moment later, the sea of fire gradually dissipated, revealing Wang Changyuan's figure. When he saw Qin Feiyang coming, he immediately flew in front of Qin Feiyang and bowed. "Greetings, young master." "Congratulations." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "It's all thanks to you, young master." Wang Changyuan quickly waved his hand. "Don't say that. If your talent isn't good or you don't work hard, even if I help you open all the gates of potential, it's useless." Qin Feiyang smiled. Wang Changyuan scratched his head, looking charmingly naive. "However, you can't be arrogant and complacent. You have to continue to work hard. It's best if you can comprehend an ultimate law. This way, you will truly have the capital to fight against the dragons." Qin Feiyang reminded. "I will." Wang Changyuan nodded solemnly. From these words, it was not difficult to see that the young lord had high expectations of him. So he must not disappoint the young lord. Qin Feiyang smiled and glanced at the crowd below. He asked, "Where's old Pei?" "I don't know. Isn't he activating the gate of potential in the castle?" Wang Changyuan shook his head. "It's been 3,000 years. He should have opened it long ago." Qin Feiyang said. "Then he didn't look for you?" Wang Changyuan asked. "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head and was about to release his perception to search for Pei Tianhong. Boom! But at this moment, another terrifying aura suddenly rolled over from afar. Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf were all shocked. This was the aura of the slaughter law. They all grasped the law of slaughter, so they were naturally quite familiar with the aura of the law of slaughter. Madman said, "It seems to be from the western region. Is it old Pei's aura? Let's go and take a look." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and prepared to bring the madman and Wang Changyuan to the western region. "Young lord, bring us along too," the 9 commanders hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked at the 9 commanders with deep meaning. Then, he brought the 9 of them and instantly descended in the sky above the western region. Below, the blood sea surged and a thick smell of blood assaulted their nostrils. Although all the blood had been consumed last time, after hundreds of thousands of years of accumulation in the Black Tortoise world, There was still a lot of blood left. At this moment, the entire blood sea was filled with a monstrous killing intent. An old man in blood clothes was sitting cross-legged in the sky with his eyes closed. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind. From afar, he looked like a killing god that had returned. It's indeed old Pei, the strength of the law of slaughter. Could it be that he has also comprehended the profound meaning? The madman was surprised. This strength means he has comprehended the profound meaning. Wang Changyuan was shocked. He originally thought that if he was given some time, he might have a chance to surpass Pei Tianhong. But he never imagined that after Pei Tianhong opened the door of potential, he would be able to comprehend the profound meaning of the law of slaughter so quickly. As expected, he was once the overlord of the Western region. His reputation was not undeserved. Regardless of whether it was before or after unlocking the door of potential, the gap between him and Pei Tianhong had never changed. Looking at this scene, the 9 commanders were even more envious and eager. Wang Changyuan was able to comprehend the profound meaning of the law of fire, because he had opened the door of potential. Pei Tianhong was also able to comprehend the profound meaning of the law of slaughter, because he had opened the door of potential. The door of potential was equivalent to breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. Whether it was talent or potential, it would receive a huge increase. Young Lord, give us a chance to perform. Suddenly, the 9 of them looked at each other and knelt in the air, looking at Qin Feiyang with begging eyes. Qin Feiyang was stunned. We also want to open the door of potential, but we stay in Zhongzhou every day and have no chance to perform. The second commander lowered his head and looked aggrieved. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Young Lord, as long as you help us open the door of potential, we are willing to do anything. The third commander also said. That's right. Even if you ask us to die, we won't frown. The fourth commander and the others also spoke. Is that so? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. I'm not lying. The 9 commanders nodded with determination in their eyes. All right then, all of you can go to hell. Qin Feiyang said. What? When the 9 commanders heard this, their expressions suddenly froze. Was he really asking them to die? This wasn't good. Their deaths were too worthless. I don't dare. Qin Feiyang laughed. The second commander felt aggrieved. Death is lighter than a goose feather and heavier than a mountain. Young Lord, you can't let us die in vain. Haha. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh, shook his head and said, You should have misunderstood the word performance. Misunderstood? The 9 of them looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. The performance I'm talking about is not deliberately showing off. If it's too deliberate, it will seem unreal and insincere. In fact, performance doesn't mean following me and blocking knives and arrows for me. It starts from every small thing. For example, you help others to solve their difficulties, teach others to cultivate and nurture the younger generation. These can all be behaviors of performance. In short, performance is a kind of attitude. You have to really integrate into this big family. Don't be selfish and accept everything with the broadest mind. Understand? Qin Feiyang asked. The 9 of them pondered for a while and nodded. Understood. Do you really understand? Qin Feiyang was a little amused. Yes. The 9 of them nodded again. He had made it so clear. If they still didn't understand, wouldn't they have lived their lives in vain? It was just that in the past, they didn't understand Qin Feiyang's thoughts. They thought that Qin Feiyang was the same as others who liked to look at the surface. It was only now that they understood that Qin Feiyang didn't look at a person's surface, but inside. All right. In the future, I will leave Zhongzhou to you guys to manage. I don't care about anything else. I only have one request. Don't break the harmonious atmosphere of the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang said. Yes. The 9 of them nodded respectfully. Swish. At this moment, the murderous aura dissipated. Pei Tianhong took a step and landed beside Qin Feiyang. The joy in his heart was suppressed, but it could still be seen. Didn't I ask you to follow me at all times? Qin Feiyang said. When I opened the door of potential, I wanted to look for you. But seeing that you were in seclusion, I didn't disturb you. Pei Tianhong explained. I see. I thought that after you opened the door of potential, You turned hostile. Qin Feiyang laughed. I wouldn't dare. Pei Tianhong quickly waved his hand. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Since you and old Wang have broken through, seen your brother frenzied, and I have grasped the inheritance, then let's go out for a walk. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. Pei Tianhong nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the 9 commanders and smiled. Remember my words. With that, he waved his hand and sent a group of people to Zhongzhou. By the way, little Pei, what is the relationship between the Yun family and He family that you mentioned? White-eyed Wolf looked at Pei Tianhong suspiciously. The relationship between these two families is very deep. Do you know the origin of deities Templar? Pei Tianhong asked. Nonsense, if we know, why would we ask you? Frenzied rolled his eyes at him. Pei Tianhong smiled and said, Deities Templar was created by the ancestors of the Yun family and He family. N. Qin Feiyang, Frenzied and White-eyed Wolf looked at each other. So Deities Templar was created by these two families. In other words, these two families were the owners of Deities Templar. It is said that the ancestors of the Yun family and He family grew up together. Although they weren't blood brothers, they were closer than blood brothers, just like you guys now. Pei Tianhong looked at Qin Feiyang and Frenzied and smiled. That's quite good. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. In a person's life, there are many bad friends, but how many close friends can there be? Pei Tianhong couldn't help but sigh, because he thought of his life. As the Blood Hall's hall master, he had a high position and knew countless people. But when he was in danger, who would come to help him? Just like Wang Changyuan. Wang Changyuan treated him well back then, but he still betrayed him. Don't sigh, hurry up and say it. Frenzied urged. He felt that the situation between the Yun family and He family wasn't so simple. Pei Tianhong collected his thoughts and said, Back then, the ancestors of these two families created deities Templar. After unremitting efforts, they finally overthrew all the forces in the southern continent and unified the southern continent, becoming the overlord of this place. However, speaking up to here, Pei Tianhong couldn't help but sneer and say, Humans are ultimately controlled by emotions and desires. After unifying the southern continent, the ambitions of the ancestors of these two families became even greater. They both wanted to control the southern continent. So they had internal strife? Frenzied asked. That's right. Because of ambition and desire, the two of them agreed to fight in the Milky Way. It's said that the battle lasted for half a month. In the end, both of them perished. Pei Tianhong shook his head. Chapter 34:18. What? Both died? The white-eyed wolf paused and asked suspiciously. Didn't you say that the Yin family's old ancestor is the deputy temple master, and the He family's old ancestor is the temple master? You've misunderstood. Pei Tianhong shook his head and smiled. The old ancestor is the old ancestor, and the primogenitor is the primogenitor. The two are different. Isn't the old ancestor a primogenitor? The white-eyed wolf looked at Madman and Qin Feiyang. Talking to you makes me feel like my intelligence is lowered. How can the old ancestor be a primogenitor? No matter where it is, the primogenitor refers to the first generation. But the old ancestor can be called an old ancestor if they have a bit of seniority, age, and strength. Madman was helpless. I see. The white-eyed wolf nodded in realization. That's right. The Yin family's old ancestor and the He family's old ancestor are both descendants of the two primogenitors. Pei Tianhong said. The white-eyed wolf had an awkward expression. I don't know much about the relationship between you humans. Please don't laugh at me. Pei Tianhong shook his head and laughed. Because of that battle, the two primogenitors both died, and the Yin and He families formed an irreconcilable enmity. Don't think that they are harmonious on the surface, but in reality, the two families are constantly scheming against each other. Interesting. Qin Feiyang chuckled and asked, Are there many people who know about this? Definitely not many, because the two primogenitors didn't announce their battle. I only heard about it later. Pei Tianhong said. So even though the temple seems harmonious now, there are undercurrents surging? Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. Both the Yun and He families want to eliminate each other, unify the temple, and dominate the southern continent. However, the He family has developed better in recent years. That's because monstrous geniuses are constantly being born in their clan. Now, almost 2/3 of the people in this temple are from the He clan. Some of them are from the He clan, and some of them are outsiders that the He clan has recruited. These people who don't share the same surname were all groomed by the He family. They are all geniuses that are 1 in a million. In the beginning, the Yun family and the He family were equal in strength. But now the He family has basically suppressed the Yun family. This is also the reason why the Yun family became the second most powerful family. Pei Tianhong said. That He clan's ancestor is indeed quite capable. Qin Feiyang smiled. That's for sure. Otherwise, how can he suppress the Yun family's old ancestor and sit firmly on the seat of the temple master? However, the Yun family will definitely not sit still and wait for death. I heard that they've been secretly developing their forces for a long time. Furthermore, I've heard that a demon-level genius was born in this generation of the Yun family. Pei Tianhong said. Monster? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, I've heard that he comprehended an ultimate law. However, the Yun family has protected this person very well. They didn't disclose what ultimate law he comprehended to the public at all. They didn't even tell the public who his parents are, what his name is, or what he looks like. It's not just the He family. Even our Blood Hall, Demonic Hall, and Rogue Cultivator Alliance have investigated in the past. We couldn't help but suspect that the Yun family might have fabricated this out of thin air. Actually, there's no such thing at all, Pei Tianhong said. Ultimate law. The Yun family. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. With the Yun family's status, they shouldn't lie to the outside world. We thought so too. However, we've basically investigated the more outstanding geniuses of the Yun family, but none of them possess the space-time law. Pei Tianhong said. Then, is it possible that this person is hiding among those less outstanding geniuses? Qin Feiyang asked. Of course, this is also possible. Moreover, if this is the case, then this monster of the Yun family, whether it's his temperament or other aspects, can't be underestimated. After all, to be able to hide for so many years without leaving any traces, it's not something an ordinary young person can do. Pei Tianhong said. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. He was also quite curious about this monster of the Yun family. I'm a little puzzled. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf spoke, its brows tightly knitted together. What? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at it. The white-eyed wolf said. Isn't it just comprehending an ultimate law? What's so rare about it that they have to protect it so carefully? Pei Tianhong was stunned. Wang Changyuan was also extremely speechless. He shook his head and said, It's really as the saying goes, if you're not in charge, you don't know the cost of daily necessities. What does this have to do with daily necessities? The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes. Isn't this the same logic? You can fuse laws, and now you've mastered the 3 ultimate laws. You do have the qualifications to say that ultimate laws aren't rare. But you have to think about it. Not everyone has a talent like yours. Let's take the simplest example. Let's talk about the young master and frenzy. Their talents are okay, right? Wang Changyuan looked at the white-eyed wolf and asked. Isn't this nonsense? Who doesn't know what's in front of them? The white-eyed wolf rolled its eyes at Wang Changyuan. Yes, their talents are obvious to all. But look, until now, how many ultimate laws have they comprehended? Wang Changyuan smiled slightly. The white-eyed wolf was taken aback. Looking at Qin Feiyang and frenzy, it couldn't help but fall silent. The young master has comprehended the cause and effect law until now. Frenzy hasn't comprehended a single ultimate law until now, because his death law and space-time law are all inherited. When Wang Changyuan said this, he felt Frenzy's unfriendly gaze and hurriedly smiled. Don't misunderstand. It's not that I'm looking down on you. You were lucky to be able to obtain the inheritance. Others say that luck is also a part of strength, right? Frenzy was speechless and waved his hand. I'm not that stingy. Wang Changyuan smiled awkwardly, and looked at the white-eyed wolf. I won't go into the details. You should also understand that those who can comprehend an ultimate law by themselves aren't bad. All right, the white-eyed wolf nodded. In fact, people like Yi Tian and that monster from the Yin family aren't any worse than the young master in frenzy. The difference is that they haven't opened the door of potential, and they aren't like the young master in frenzy, who relied on themselves since young and experienced countless tempering. Their mentality and character are better than those flowers that grew up in a greenhouse. Pei Tianhong smiled faintly. Wang Changyuan continued Pei Tianhong's words. That's why talent is actually secondary. You still have to rely on your own hard work. Don't make it sound so nice. Who would want to work hard if they have a background? Old Qin and I have no choice. Isn't there a famous saying in the mortal world? Children from poor families can take care of their families early. Frenzy shook his head. Not everyone is like that. I personally feel that even if you and the young master are given a strong family background, you will still work harder than other people of the same age. Because character decides everything. Wang Changyuan smiled. You're bullshitting. Do you know old Qin's previous identity? He's the son of an emperor. Although the Great Qin Empire can't be compared to a small family in the Sky Cloud domain, it's still a giant that unified the entire continent. In fact, he's also a hedonistic son. That's why he was forced out. Frenzy shook his head. Hey, what are you talking about? Who's the hedonistic son? When I was young, I was quite hardworking. What 4 books and 5 classics, astronomy, geography, zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, which one haven't I learned? Don't slander me. If we're talking about hedonistic, then it should be you. Do you still need me to tell you all the things you've done in Nine Heavens Palace? Qin Feiyang wasn't happy. Cough cough. Frenzy coughed dryly and laughed dryly. Let's not expose each other's background. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and looked at Pei Tianhong. Since the Yun family and the He family have a grudge, then we shouldn't try to rope in the Yun family. After all, we'll offend the He family. That's for sure. There's gain and loss. However, in the long run, if we help the Yun family destroy the He family and take over the temple and the southern continent, then forming an alliance with the Yun family is equivalent to forming an alliance with the entire southern continent. The eastern continent's demonic palace and the western continent's rogue cultivator alliance are already our allies. If we add the southern continent, think about it. At that time, half of the sky cloud boundary will be in our hands. Then, we'll have a greater chance of fighting against the dragons. Pei Tianhong smiled. Old man, you're really dishonest. Not only do you want to drag the temple down, but you also want to drag the demonic palace and the rogue cultivator alliance down. The white-eyed wolf looked at him with disdain. Cough cough. Pei Tianhong's face darkened and said angrily, Isn't this all for the young master? It's a thankless task. Don't take it seriously. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. After muttering to himself for a while, he shook his head and said, However, that ingrate truly understands me. The dragon race is coming for me. Furthermore, the strength of the dragon race is already beyond imagination. I will not implicate others. But, Pei Tianhong frowned. I know what you mean. The dragons are too strong. Our strength isn't enough. However, I believe that sooner or later, we'll surpass them. As for the demonic palace, the rogue cultivator alliance, and the temple, if we let them join in, I'll feel guilty when the dragons take revenge. I don't want to owe others too much. However, we can get to know the Yun family. After all, one more friend means one more path. Qin Feiyang smiled. Also, we have to figure out who is worthy of us befriending between the Yun family and the He family. We can't just look at Yun Zifeng's performance and think that the Yun family is good. The He family is a scourge. That's too one-sided. Madman added. Chapter 34:19. That's right. Even if we have to help the right person. We don't want to help a white-eyed wolf. After helping them get rid of their opponent, they will bite us back. Qin Feiyang shook his head. He had seen too many tricks of biting the hand that fed them. Then this matter. Pei Tianhong pondered for a while and shook his head with a smile. I don't dare to talk nonsense because I don't have a good impression of the Yun and He family's ancestors. Why? The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. Why else? As opponents, it's because they don't like each other. Pei Tianhong shook his head and laughed. Then as opponents, you should have some understanding of their character, right? The white-eyed wolf asked. In my eyes, they are all selfish people. If it's a cooperation, it doesn't matter at all. After all, they are just scheming against each other and using each other. But if you want to make friends, you have to find out for yourself. Pei Tianhong said. He didn't dare to interfere in this matter. If he really met a white-eyed wolf, even if Qin Feiyang didn't blame him, he would feel guilty. All right. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said with a smile, this matter isn't urgent. Time will reveal a person's heart. Let's go back to the Eastern continent and see what's the current situation. Then we'll go to the Western continent and see how the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is developing? All right. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan nodded. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought the 3 people and 1 wolf to the sky above the mountains. Behind them was the Yin Devil Land. Qin Feiyang turned around and looked at the Devil Land. Frenzy, the white-eyed wolf, and Pei Tianhong also turned around. Their eyes gradually flashed with a trace of cold light. Dragons, bring it on! Eastern continent. A few months passed. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance had already withdrawn from the Eastern continent. The major cities that were once controlled by the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were now all taken over by the Demon Palace. The Demon Palace had finally completely ruled the Eastern continent. And after so long, the news of the Blood Palace's destruction had already spread in the Sky Cloud realm. Qin Feiyang, the lunatic, had undoubtedly become the center of attention again. When everyone talked about them, there was only reverence and awe. Such a huge blood hall was actually destroyed in the hands of 2 little brats. How inconceivable was this? But this was real. No one could erase it, and no one had the right to do so. Speaking of Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, when I first saw them in Tianfeng City, this old man felt that their lives would definitely be extraordinary. Look, it is indeed so. Ocean of Cloud City. In a small tea house, an old storyteller sat at a table, stroking his white beard. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being as he spoke calmly. When the surrounding people who were drinking tea heard this, they couldn't help but show looks of disdain. If you had seen through it earlier, you would have gone to curry favor with them. Why would you stay in this lousy place to tell stories? Why don't you take a look at where you are bragging? However, no one exposed him. Ever since the Blood Hall was destroyed, such people had appeared every day. Some people said that they knew Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. Some people said that they had sat together and drank wine. There were even more outrageous people who said that they were distant relatives of Qin Feiyang and the lunatic. There were even people who pretended to be their fiancés. What kind of relatives could Qin Feiyang and the lunatic have in the Sky Cloud realm? Not to mention their fiancés. Qin Feiyang was already married. The lunatic's fiancé was also in the Black Tortoise realm. That was why people were afraid of being famous, and pigs were afraid of being fat. Once you were famous, all kinds of demons and ghosts would come out. 2 days later, on a street, 2 ordinary-looking young men were walking side by side. One of them was holding a cute puppy in his arms. Behind them, there were 2 old men. That's right. They were Qin Feiyang, the lunatic, the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan. In the past 2 days, they had gone to many places and had more or less understood the current situation of the Eastern continent. However, when they heard those rumors, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Distant relatives were understandable, but fiancés were a little speechless. Wang Changyuan glanced at the people coming and going and said via voice transmission, "Young master, look, many young people now have a wolf by their side. They are all learning from you." Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Indeed, as Wang Changyuan said, many young people in Cloud Sea City had a wolf by their side. Just like this moment, in their line of sight, there were 5 or 6 young men, each with a wolf, walking on the street proudly. There were gold, white, black, silver. 2 days ago, when they had just arrived in Cloud Sea City, They were still a little depressed. When did wolves become so popular? After asking around, they found out that it was because of him. Because he had a white-eyed wolf by his side. So those young people all imitated him. Especially those who were from wealthy families. They felt embarrassed to go out without a wolf by their side. This also made Qin Feiyang rather speechless. Unknowingly, they arrived at the entrance of Tianyue restaurant. Although they had been in Cloud Sea City for 2 days, they hadn't been to Tianyue restaurant and had been staying in the small restaurant. Since we're here, why don't we go in and have a seat? Lunatic asked. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said with a smile, Okay, let's see if Yi Miao and Yueqing are here. So 4 people and a wolf entered Tianyue restaurant. Welcome. A waiter came up to them. Because they had changed their appearances, no one could recognize them. Is there a private room? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. No. Because it's mealtime now, not only are there no private rooms, but there are also no seats in the hall. The waiter smiled apologetically. Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. They looked up and scanned the hall. Sure enough, it was full. And the funny thing was that basically everyone here had a wolf by their side. If you're not in a hurry, you can sit here and wait for a while. Once there are seats, I'll call you immediately. The waiter pointed to the side. There was a waiting area there, and many people were sitting there. Obviously, they were also queuing. Is Tianyue restaurant's business so good? Lunatic was stunned. It's all right. Everyone is giving us face. The waiter smiled. All right, then we'll wait. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. Please go ahead. I'll prepare the tea. With that, the waiter turned around and left quickly. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic walked into the waiting area and sat on the seats. Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong stood behind Qin Feiyang consciously. You guys have a seat too. Why are you standing? Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them and said suspiciously. The two of them looked at each other and walked to the side and sat down. The waiter walked over with the teapot and teacups and said with a smile, I'm really sorry. Please have some tea to relieve your boredom. Okay, go ahead. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Okay. The waiter nodded in response and turned around to run away. Wang Changyuan smiled. The waiter of Tianyue restaurant has a pretty good attitude. This is the way of business. A restaurant not only needs to have special dishes but also good service. If the service is good and the customers feel comfortable, they will naturally come back to patronize again. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Wang Changyuan was slightly stunned and shook his head. I didn't expect young master to have such an understanding of business. I haven't eaten dragon meat, but haven't I seen a dragon? Qin Feiyang smiled. You're quite arrogant. You've seen a dragon? Brother, where have you seen it? Tell me, let me see it too. Suddenly, a purple-clothed young man looked at Qin Feiyang and asked curiously. However, there was a trace of disdain in his eyes. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He turned to look at the purple-clothed young man and couldn't help but laugh. Arrogant posture, disdainful eyes, crossing one leg over the other, and a flirtatious woman sitting in his arms. At first glance, one could tell that he was a playboy. Not to mention a playboy, he didn't even like to bother with the geniuses of the major forces. Therefore, he only took a glance and looked away. Dragon. Not only had he seen it, but he had also killed many of them. Braised, stewed, barbecued, he had basically tried them all. It was quite delicious when he first ate it, but he got sick of it when he ate more. Young masterly, look, he's laughing at you. The flirtatious woman looked at Qin Feiyang and snuggled in the purple-clothed young man's arms coquettishly. Laughing. Hearing that, the purple-clothed young man raised his eyebrows and looked at Qin Feiyang. What are you laughing at? Is it very funny? A cold light flashed in Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong's eyes. Ignore it. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly and continued drinking his tea. The flirtatious woman spoke again. Young masterly, he actually ignored you. He really doesn't take you seriously. As a playboy, how could he withstand such provocation? He immediately put down the flirtatious woman and looked at Qin Feiyang. I'm talking to you, are you deaf? Qin Feiyang frowned. Frenzy and the white-eyed wolf raised their heads and looked at the purple-clothed young man with a mocking expression. Is this person's brain rusty? Of all the people to provoke, why did he provoke them? Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong didn't care. They lowered their heads and silently tasted their tea. Don't talk about it. They were used to Qin Feiyang's tea, so they didn't feel anything when drinking this tea again. A dog? The flirtatious woman looked at the white-eyed wolf and was slightly stunned. She immediately mocked. Others bring wolves out, but you bring a dog out for a stroll. Don't you find it embarrassing? Young Master Li, show them how mighty and handsome our little white wolf is. Hearing this, the purple-clothed young man smiled proudly and said, Little White, come out. Whoosh! Immediately, a white light flew out from the purple-clothed young man's sleeve and landed on his shoulder. It was a little white wolf. It was valiant and spirited. It seemed to be showing off something. What the hell? Bringing me out embarrassing? The white-eyed wolf was annoyed when he heard this. Calm down, calm down. Frenzy quickly comforted him, and then glanced at the two. It was fine that they provoked Qin Feiyang, but they actually came to provoke the white-eyed wolf? They were really hopeless. These hedonistic sons of rich parents were everywhere. How is it? The purple-clothed young man raised his hand and touched the little white wolf's head. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others proudly. There were more than 10 people in the waiting area, but no one came to persuade them. They all looked like they were watching a good show. Chapter 34:20. Qin Feiyang looked at the purple-clothed youth with a strange expression. What's there to show off about hugging a little white wolf? Not only the purple-clothed youth, but even the little white wolf was arrogant. This little white wolf only had the cultivation of a war god. To the people of the sky cloud boundary, it was just a pet. What's there to be proud of with a pet? They were just like two clowns. We're just here to eat and drink, not to cause trouble. So brother, please stop while you're ahead. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Each one of them came to imitate him with a wolf by their side. But now they're mocking him, and the white-eyed wolf. It's funny just thinking about it. Qin Feiyang wasn't surprised by this kind of playboy. He was too lazy to bother with them. Are you implying that I'm causing trouble? The purple-clothed youth didn't let go, and stared at Qin Feiyang. Am I not? Qin Feiyang asked back. His patience was almost worn out. He didn't want to talk nonsense anymore. This was simply looking for trouble. Humph! The purple-clothed youth snorted and slowly returned to his seat. He said faintly, Fine, I'm too lazy to bother with you. After all, looking at your clothes, I can tell that you're from the countryside and haven't seen the world. If I really bully you, others will say that I'm bullying the weak and ruin my reputation. Qin Feiyang was stunned. The madman, the white-eyed wolf, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Changyuan were also stunned. They wouldn't deny that they're from the countryside. After all, they were indeed born in a small place. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan may have powerful cultivation and noble status, but they were also born in an ordinary family. They had to rely on their own efforts to reach where they are today, so they couldn't deny this point. But to say that they haven't seen the world, that's funny. Not to mention Wang Changyuan and Pei Tianhong. Even Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf had to go through countless trials and tribulations to reach where they were today. In terms of experience, not to mention this playboy in front of them, even the older generation of the sky cloud realm couldn't compare to them. As for bullying the weak, this was even more laughable. Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan were both sovereigns who had mastered two supreme profundities. Madman and Qin Feiyang's cultivation had both reached the greater success sovereign realm, and they had grasped two supreme laws. And the ingrate had even grasped the supreme profundities of three supreme laws? As for the purple-clad young man, he was only at the perfect undead realm. He hadn't even reached the half-step sovereign realm. As for the beautiful woman, she wasn't even at the undead realm. She was only at the nine heavens realm. At that time, who would be the bully? He really couldn't figure out who gave this purple-clothed young man the courage to say such words. They were just keeping a low profile, and didn't reveal their aura. Otherwise, those at the undead realm and nine heavens realm could only stand at the side and tremble. However, Qin Feiyang and the others still didn't bother about it. After all, their status, strength and mentality weren't on the same level, so there was no need to waste words. When the purple-clad young man saw this, he thought that Qin Feiyang and the others were afraid and didn't dare to say anything. The pride on his face became thicker. "Young Master Li, how much longer do we have to wait? Didn't you say that you're very familiar with the Heavenly Joy Tower's Tower Lord? Why can't you just find her and arrange a private room for us?" The beautiful woman was also very proud as she shook the purple-clad young man's arm and said in a coquettish voice, "No hurry. There aren't any empty seats now. Even if we find the Tower Lord, it's useless. She can't possibly chase the guests out. After all, she's doing business." The purple-clad young man comforted. "But we've already waited for so long." The beautiful woman seemed to have suffered a great grievance. She even glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others and said unhappily, "I still have to sit together with these bumpkins. How annoying." The madman's brows twitched. She really didn't know how to restrain herself. "Annoying, don't look at them," the purple-clad young man calmly said. "I don't care. In any case, I don't want to wait anymore." The beautiful woman turned her head and pouted. She seemed very fake. The purple-clad young man couldn't help but feel a headache. He turned and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and frowned. "The Heavenly Immortal Tower isn't a place you can come to. Hurry up and scram. Don't be an eyesore and make my woman angry. Trying to take advantage of us." Qin Feiyang instantly frowned. His patience was really reaching its limit. He didn't have the ability to find Yue Qing and Yi Miao to arrange a private room for them. Now he was shamelessly pushing all the responsibility to them? "Did you hear that? I told you to scram," the purple-clad young man shouted. Slap. Qin Feiyang couldn't bear it any longer. He stood up and slapped the purple-clad young man's face. At this moment, the purple-clad young man was stunned. The beautiful woman and the little white wolf were stunned as well. The people who were watching the show at the side were also stunned. He actually hit them. "You dare to hit me?" The purple-clad young man touched his face and looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. "I'm already going easy on you. If I had my temper in the past, you would have been a corpse by now. I'll give you a chance. Get out of my sight immediately." A cold light flickered in Qin Feiyang's eyes. Such people wouldn't be obedient unless they were beaten. "Bastard! Do you know who I am?" The purple-clad young man roared with rage in his eyes. His roar instantly alarmed the people in the hall and the waiters of the restaurant. Everyone looked over. "Isn't that young Master Li? He's a famous profligate son of our city. He was actually beaten up." Someone looked at the purple-clad young man in astonishment. Obviously, the purple-clad young man wasn't just a regular customer of Tianyue restaurant. He was also a famous person in Cloud Sea City. However, Qin Feiyang and the others didn't have any impression of him. They never paid attention to profligate sons of rich families. The waiters of the restaurant reacted and hurriedly ran into the waiting area. When they saw Qin Feiyang and the purple-clad young man, they asked suspiciously, "What's going on?" The beautiful woman looked at the waiters arrogantly and said angrily, "Drive these bumpkins out right now. Do you think you'll be done with that?" The purple-clad young man smiled coldly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said sternly, "If you don't kneel down and apologize today, don't even think about stepping out of Tianyue restaurant." Young Master Li calmed down first. The waiters of the restaurant saw that the situation was getting worse and better, so they quickly smiled apologetically and comforted him. Then, they looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and said, "If you've really said or done something wrong and offended young Master Li, please apologize to him, and let's turn this into a small matter, okay? Ask him yourself," Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Then he returned to his seat and continued to drink his tea. The waiters looked at Qin Feiyang and then at the purple-clad young man. They were at a loss of what to do. Seeing Qin Feiyang's attitude, the purple-clad young man was furious. He took a step forward and slapped away the teacup in Qin Feiyang's hand. The teacup was smashed into pieces, and the tea splashed all over the floor. Qin Feiyang suddenly raised his head and stared at the purple-clad young man. The purple-clad young man's eyes trembled, and a sense of horror emerged in his heart. He felt that he was facing a devil at this moment. The atmosphere here was getting heavier and heavier. Everyone, please calm down. The waiters were also in a terrible fix. He knew young Master Li's background, so he couldn't be complacent easily. As for Qin Feiyang and the others, although they looked ordinary, they must have a certain level of confidence to slap young Master Li in public. Perhaps they were just pretending to be weak. Moreover, Tianyue restaurant had a rule that forbade them from being rude to any customer. Even if it was a beggar, as long as they were here to spend money, they had to treat them warmly. So for a moment, he didn't know how to solve the problem. There are so many people who don't know what's good for them. Yes, young Master Li's family is one of the top families in Cloudsea City. Offending him is like courting death. Most importantly, this is Tianyue restaurant. Although the owners of Tianyue restaurant are Yueqing and Yi Miao, everyone knows that the person behind them is Qin Feiyang. No one has ever dared to cause trouble in Tianyue restaurant. This matter is really going to blow up. We can't afford to offend the Li family, and now there's Tianyue restaurant. These people will definitely suffer. So if you know what's good for you, you'd better apologize quickly. The crowd looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and discussed animatedly. Did you hear that? Quickly kneel down and apologize. For the sake of Tianyue restaurant, I won't hold it against you. The young man in purple sneered at Qin Feiyang. Sigh. Qin Feiyang shook his head and looked at the waiter. Call your housemaster out. What? The waiter was slightly stunned and frowned. Is there a need to disturb the housemaster over such a small matter? The purple-clothed youth also looked at Qin Feiyang and sneered. Don't you dare say that you know the housemaster. A person like you isn't even fit to carry the housemaster's shoes. So don't put on an act. People who don't know might think that you're some big shot. Qin Feiyang ignored him and looked at the waiter. The waiter hesitated. Fine, you want to see the housemaster, right? I'll call her for you. I'd like to see what you're going to say to the housemaster when she comes. The young man in purple sneered and took out the divine sound transmission stone. Qin Feiyang changed his teacup and drank his tea while saying indifferently, as long as she comes, I don't need to say anything. She'll ask someone to drive you out directly. He originally wanted to keep a low profile, but this person was too insensible. He had no choice but to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. Haha. As soon as he said that, it immediately caused an uproar of laughter. Even the waiter in the restaurant couldn't help but laugh. You're bragging too much. Who do you think you are? Qin Feiyang, madman mo? You're such a big shot. Good. The young man in purple also laughed. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I'd like to see if I'm the one who will be driven out. Or will you be driven out? Qin Feiyang just smiled faintly. The young man in purple had a look of ridicule in his eyes and activated the divine sound transmission stone. Not long after, an illusory figure appeared. It was none other than Yi Miao. Young Master Li, how do you have the time to send me a message? Yi Miao asked with a smile. Miss Miao Miao, I'm sorry. If it weren't for some special circumstances, I wouldn't have bothered you, as I know you must be very busy. The young man in purple said with a smile. His words were full of flattery, and his eyes were filled with admiration. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.